My entitled cousin demands that I let her move into my house, stating that because I have the room, she should be allowed to stay there for pretty much as long as she wants. But after growing up around her and knowing how much drama comes along with her, I decided to put my foot down and say no, as I know for a fact she will literally ruin my life and stay way longer than she should. Here's what's going on. I'm a 25-year-old female and I bought my own 3-bedroom house last year after working full-time and saving up, which was a huge deal for me. One room's mine, one is my study, and the third is a guest room, which was for actual guests. And we're talking people who would stay for like a weekend and then leave. Life was moving pretty good until I got a random call from my cousin, who we will call Tasha. For just a bit of background, Tasha has always been a bit of a nutcase, even when we were kids. Constant drama, always lying, stealing little things, blaming others, etc. My mom once said that Tasha could smash a glass and somehow make it someone else's fault. And as we got older, the rumors about her got worse. Stuff about how she would go around town with sketchy guys, she would be on the party scenes, with the possibility of substance use, but nothing was confirmed. But you know what? Nobody's shocked. We barely talk unless it's at a family event, and even then, I keep it short. So we were on the phone, and after 2 minutes of fake small talk, she then says that she broke up with her boyfriend, and she figured she will stay at my place for a while. You know, just for a few months until she got her stuff together. And she said it like she was inviting herself to dinner, and she was saying it like, oh please, you don't mind, right? I'll just be there. But I said no. I said it nicely at first, as I told her the guest room isn't for long-term stays, and I need peace to work from home. Well, that's when she started getting nasty. She said I was acting all high and mighty because I bought a house. Like that makes me better than everyone. But I still stood my ground. A few days later, my other aunt, you know, not even her own mom, just one of those older relatives who tries to play the peacemaker, called me up and said, you know, it wouldn't hurt to help her out. She is still family. But I flat out told her that I've seen Tasha move in with people before, and it's never for a few months. She comes with drama, a suitcase full of bad decisions, and she never leaves unless someone threatens legal action. So no, I'm not doing it. I work too hard for my peace and my space just to hand it over to someone who has always been bad news. Because honestly, she can figure it out. Because that process is definitely not gonna happen in my house. Dude, good for you for standing your ground. This Tasha lady sounds awful. Like seriously, just one big drama queen who's just waiting to ruin your life. And that's honestly all that would happen. She would ruin everything and treat you like garbage. And the fact that anyone's trying to come to her defense and be like, oh, but we're family. Family does this. Come on. Just let her in and let her move in. This'll be fine. It's like, no, dude, if you really feel that way, then let her move in with you. Like, it's always the people who are like, oh, come on, just do it for this one time. Those are the kind of people who would never do it themselves and are only reaching out because they're like, please, she's calling me nonstop. Please make it stop by like fixing this for me. When it's like, no, you shouldn't have to do that. This is your home. So yes, this was absolutely necessary, and no, you are not the jerk. Because Tasha sounds like bad news, and I don't blame you for shutting her out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled mom and daughter demand that I move out of my workspace at a library, as they claim they always sit where I'm at and they want it way more than I do. But thankfully, the librarian came in clutch and shut this lady down, leaving me incredibly confused at how entitled this Karen truly was. Here's what happened. So this happened a few days ago at my local library. I usually go there to get some work done because it's quieter than home and the Wi-Fi is pretty decent. I had just sat down at one of the public computers, literally 10 minutes in, when this woman walks up with her daughter. Now her daughter looks to be about 17 years old. I noticed them kind of hovering behind me, but I figured that they were just waiting for a computer nearby to free up. Then the mom taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hi, how long are you gonna be?" I say to her, "Well, I'll probably be a while. I mean, I just got here. There are a bunch of other computers though that are open." Well, she looks at the other ones and just scoffs. She says to me, "Yeah, but my daughter likes this one. She always uses this one. Can't you just move?" And when she said that, I was honestly super confused. I told her no, I already logged in and started working, and it's also first come, first serve. She then hits me with the dumbest thing I've ever heard. "You're an adult. You can work anywhere. She is a child." And I almost laughed because first off, she is not a little kid. I told her again that I'm not moving, and I suggested that she speak to a librarian if she has an issue. And you know what? She actually did. She walks off muttering something and gets a librarian. The librarian walks over, asks me if everything's all right, and I explain what happened. Then the librarian turns to the mom and says, "Ma'am, this isn't a restaurant. You don't get to request your favorite table." The look on the mom's face was absolutely priceless. She mumbled something about rude people and ended up using another computer like 3 seats down. Same model, same everything. Just not the special one, I guess. I'm genuinely wondering if I missed a memo where having a kid means you own public spaces now, because this incident was incredibly confusing. confusing. Yeah, this would not only be confusing, but also like really piss me off because seriously, there are other computers you can go to, but you're bothering me? Like, get a life, go somewhere else and bother some other person. Because I know if I was in this situation, I would be very pissed off. My mom puts my dad in his place after a rude comment and a long few days, leaving him alone to take care of all the kids, teaching him a lesson in the process that he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad worked long-haul trucking when I was little, while my mom worked part-time from home so she could raise us kids. This occurred when I was maybe 4 years old at the time, and my sister had just started walking during the early 2000s. Now, I know all of this because my mom brings it up anytime she's pissed off at dad if he slacks on parenting duties, with mostly those occasions being unintentional on his part. So basically, dad comes in from days in the truck, sees my mom half passed out on the couch as she had been fighting a cold the past few days prior, sees me watching TV while my sister waddled up to him with her diaper sagging. Now he, being tired himself, blurted out, "Geez, woman, you couldn't change her?" All while trying to step around my sister. Now, according to my mom, she just got up, looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You're in charge of the girls now," and then locked herself in their bathroom. Now, dad of course made a small stink about it, but he did change my sister and then tried to get the TV remote away so that he could watch something. Well, me being the little jerk that I was as a kid, told him, "Mommy said I get the TV today because I read a whole book." Basically meaning that I wasn't going to give him the TV remote. So my dad stormed off to confront mom as the only other TV was in their room. Mom told him I was right and to just tough it out through the door. Well, my dad had to sit with me and my sister while Dora played on the TV for the next 2 hours. And yes, it was a marathon day, so there was a lot of it. He knew that if he took the remote away from me when I was rewarded, it would backfire on him completely. And trust me, that's another long story in and of itself. Then my mom wouldn't come out at dinner time, so dad had to make dinner himself. But I was picky as I had undiagnosed autism at the time, and I had a meltdown over what he made. Dad pleaded to mom to please come out and help, but mom told him to man up and deal with it himself. My dad ended up just giving me cereal because I refused to eat whatever he cooked, and dad knew that if he withheld dinner from me, mom would literally sick his parents on him, especially my grandma, who is terrifying. I mean, she even scolded my dad in front of us for not playing with us when we asked. He then also had to make my school lunch for tomorrow and then get us kids to bed. My mom, meanwhile, kept him locked out of their room for the next 36 hours, using their ensuite and having him bring her meals, namely dinner and then breakfast. Dad had to sleep on the couch, deal with my bedtime tantrums, and the next morning my before school meltdown, pack my bag, dress me, and then walk me to school, all while dealing with my barely year-old sister who would get into everything and was just super fussy at the worst of times. According to mom, after dad picked me up from school at the end of the day, she finally came out all rested, took one look at my disheveled, sleep-deprived father, and said to him, "You really couldn't keep them calm?" Well, dad never ever made even a single comment like that ever again. Oh, and mom still tattled on dad, so grandma gave him a verbal whooping that weekend when we visited her and grandpa. Then my grandma made my dad do all the house chores, while she, my grandpa, and my mom sat and played with my sister and I, marking this as a moment that I'm sure my father has never forgotten. Oh man, this is really funny. I'm sure that dad immediately regretted his decision to make that comment because this really does sound like an absolute nightmare. A group of entitled parents at a public park try to have their kids ride the back of my dog while we are sitting in a picnic area, resulting in one of the most confusing and irritating situations I've ever had to be in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I took my golden retriever named Max to a local family-friendly festival last Sunday. It had outdoor booths, live music, food trucks, and kids everywhere. Now for this, I kept him leashed the entire time. He is calm, trained, and used to crowds, so he was just happily trotting beside me, soaking up pets from strangers and stealing attention like a pro. At one point, while we were resting near a shaded picnic area, a group of kids ran over and started fawning over him, which was fine, it happens all the time. Max sat patiently with his tail wagging. Then their parents showed up, but instead of pulling the kids back, or thanking me for letting them pet the dog, they started positioning one of the kids like he was about to sit on Max, with one leg lifted like he was about to mount a pony. And at this point, Max stood up, visibly confused, and started backing away. I then gently repositioned him and I moved between them. And when I did that, the parents were visibly annoyed. One of them even pointed at Max like he was some kind of prop. No asking, no eye contact, just an unspoken expectation that their children were entitled to use my living, breathing pet as a ride. When they realized I wasn't going along with it, they stormed off with one of the kids whining, one of the adults muttering something under their breath, and shooting glares back at me like I had ruined their family outing, which honestly is completely baffling. Wow, those parents are not good parents because that could have really hurt the dog. Seriously, you should not be riding dogs like that. That's incredibly bad for their back, especially a dog that you don't know. Like sure, Max is sitting there wagging his tail, but who's to say the second you don't put your kid on its back, it's not going to turn around and start biting people. Like, what an irresponsible, stupid thing to do. Not to mention just blatantly disrespectful to the owner of the dog. So good for you for protecting your dog. This really could have ended badly, because these parents sound incredibly inconsiderate. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit, and if you would like to submit your own stories, check out the link in the description. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for secretly investigating my sister after her husband accused her of cheating? Because right now everything's blown up in my face and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. A few weeks ago, my brother-in-law, who I will call Rob for the sake of the story, came to me and confessed that he thought my sister, who we will call Emily, was cheating on him. For context, Rob and I are good friends and talk regularly at family events and gatherings. He is an only child, but we've known each other long enough that he sees me as a sister. I've never known Emily to cheat on anyone, let alone her husband of 5 years, so at first I was skeptical of Rob's claim. However, Rob told me that Emily had been acting distant, reserved, and all these other things, and would evade the topic whenever he asked about it. I asked Emily if she was feeling alright, and she said that she was fine. Well, I told Rob this, and he asked if I could dig deeper to see if there was truly something going on. This threw me off further, since it seemed like he was just looking for dirt on Emily to justify something that he had done. So I told him to try being more firm in talking with Emily. The next day, Emily calls me in tears and tells me Rob accused her of cheating and that she's devastated. She thought he accused her to hide his own cheating, so she made him give over his phone to her so that she could go through it, but she found nothing. It was at this point that I began to suspect something. At first, I had the same suspicion my sister had, but if she didn't find anything, then what Rob said began to make more sense. So over the next week, I started paying more attention to where my sister was going. We both live on the main road of a small town, and she drives a very distinct vehicle. I started watching to see when she'd pass by each day, as well as asked Rob to see where she said she was going. After a few days, I saw Emily driving by when the gym she told Rob she was visiting was the opposite direction. She came back 2 hours later and clearly never visited the gym. At this point, I had reason to believe Emily did really cheat, and Rob seemed completely innocent. The next time I visited Emily, I asked to use her laptop to do some shopping, and she just let me have it. Well, it turns out she saved her passwords to everything on there, so I could sign in as her. It took me 10 minutes to find messages to a guy on Snapchat where they literally agreed to meet up. The messages really weren't flirty, and they hadn't shared any pictures, but she had agreed to meet a man in secret, which was enough for Rob to confront her. Once again, I receive a call from my sister screaming at me that I violated her privacy and I broke her trust, and what I found was just chatting with a coworker and not cheating. She then accused me of trying to steal Rob and basically said I was a terrible person for trying to ruin her life. I don't know what all her and Rob have said to each other, but it definitely cannot be pretty either. So am I the jerk for getting involved in this? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, this might go against like anything I've ever said on this channel, but yeah, I do think you're the jerk here. Why on earth did you get involved in this situation? Like seriously, what a nightmare. This doesn't sound like something anyone should get between. This is something that Emily and Rob need to figure out. And yeah, unfortunately, Emily's completely right. You invaded her privacy by going into her laptop and looking through everything. That's not fair for Emily, even if she is cheating. Like sure, you think you found something of them meeting up, but she's like, no, that wasn't cheating. That's literally a coworker. And unless you have some irrefutable evidence to be like, oh no, you were gonna cheat, then what you found is pretty innocuous and probably nothing. And now you're involved in something that definitely should not involve you in the first place. So yes, in this situation, I definitely think you're the jerk. Did I overreact for walking out when my sister-in-laws tried to put a $400 surprise birthday cake on my card at a dinner I organized, basically implying that I'll pay for it without even asking me first? Because right now my entire family is pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been married for 12 years to a brilliant wife who is the one that keeps me sane enough to survive things like family dinners. For a bit of background, my family calls me the restaurant guy because I can monologue about favorite dishes of mine that are long gone. So it was no shock that my sister-in-law asked me to book a place for my brother Dan's 40th birthday that could handle a big crowd. So I used a typical reservation site, I tossed in my card to lock the table down, and picked a well-known LA spot that has old school vibes with a huge Scottish list. And I figured that we would split the bill like always. Well, the day comes around last Saturday, and dinner's rolling, prime rib and cocktails are everywhere, but at that moment the lights dim and a 3-tier cake with Dan's name shows up on the table. We do the thing, and not even 10 minutes later, the manager thanks me for prepaying and hands me a bill for $400 plus an automatic tip, saying that my sister-in-law told him to go big and to put it on the card used for the reservation. But thankfully it was denied because they can't do that. And this is literally the first I've ever heard of it. I could tell he knew I was genuinely flabbergasted by hearing this. I told the manager the cake wasn't on me, had him reverse reverse the charge, and he did that with no questions asked. I then wished Dan happy birthday, and then I headed home. So now, all of Sunday and this past week, even on the holiday, the family chat is going crazy and all, but saying that I ruined the night and made everyone scramble to cover dessert, which apparently was an expense they weren't prepared for. And yes, I will say that I've done pretty well in this world thanks to my portfolio, but I do not want to be taken advantage of. Like, that really is incredibly rude. Frankly, I would have covered the whole meal without issues, but there's something off about trying to stick a fancy cake on my card without asking. It really just feels shady. It's not going to change the way some of my family feel, but I'm posting here for a little validation, and that it might just help me feel like I'm not taking one of those crazy pills here. So seriously, am I overreacting, or did she indeed push it too far? What should I do? Holy crap, $400 for a cake? If someone sprung that on me and said, okay, we're gonna cover it with a card on file, I would be like, wait a second, that's not happening. That's my card, and no, we're not doing that. Like, that's an insane thing to throw on you all of a sudden, regardless of if you have money or not. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. This is incredibly rude, and I absolutely agree with the original poster. It is shady at best, because if they were truly not prepared to pay for it, then they should not have ordered it in the first place. Am I the jerk for wanting to kick my brother out of my house, as he has only been able to pay rent consistently for maybe 2 months? Because right now I'm getting a lot of guilt trip from my family, and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I live with my parents and my younger brother, who is 25. Since graduating high school, my brother hasn't been able to keep a job for more than a year. He lives rent-free, and my parents cover all of his expenses, including his car and insurance. And I've always been frustrated with how much they baby him. Things got worse when my dad lost his job after a serious accident that caused him to lose an eye. Ever since then, I've been covering almost all the household expenses. I told my brother if he wanted to live under my roof, he had to start paying rent. Well, he agreed, but only managed 2 months worth of it, after constant reminders. And then he quit his job and stopped paying rent altogether. Now, we had an agreement. If he couldn't keep paying rent consistently, he would have to either join the military or move out. Back in March, he told me he was working with a Navy recruiter and just needed time to detox from some of the substances that he was smoking. I gave him until the end of June to show me a signed military contract, but earlier this month, he told me he's no longer enlisting. Instead, he promised to pay rent again and back pay what he owes. At that point, I had had enough. I told him he needed to move out by the end of June, and I was very firm and very clear with him. I don't want him living with me anymore. I love him, but he needs to grow up and take responsibility for his life. And now my parents are upset with me. They say I'm being heartless, that he won't survive on his own. My mom even said that if something happened to him, she wouldn't want to live. I love my mom deeply, but when she says things like that, it feels incredibly manipulative and guilt-inducing. She says we're a small family, and we need to stick together, but I feel stuck. I'd move out if I could, but I'm worried about leaving my parents behind in all of this mess. My brother also complained that I charged him way too much for rent, but I only asked for what the local market would charge for a room and nothing more. Every time I bring up my concerns, my parents say that they'll talk to him, but nothing ever changes, and I'm left feeling drained, unsupported, and angry in my own home. I hate that it's come to this, but I honestly don't want him near me anymore. I don't want to fight, but I am ready to stand my ground. This situation is wrecking my mental health, and I seriously just need to hear from people who don't know me, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, the fact that he's not paying rent is more than enough reason to be like, okay, you've got to go. Like, I don't think him joining the military or not is something you can really enforce. Like, that's kind of crazy, but you can absolutely enforce whether or not he lives there, especially if you have say over the household. And if this guy's not carrying his weight by paying rent, then sorry, you got to go. This is the deal we had and you broke it, so now you've got to leave. And sure, this is a close family and this is all you have, but also it kind of seems like he's taking advantage of this situation and not actually trying to make anything work. So no, you would not be the jerk for kicking him out, because I think this might be the best thing for him. I left my ex years ago, but in the process, I also took out his PlayStation and his PlayStation account, making this one of the pettiest revenges I've ever done in my life. Here's how I did it. Okay, so this happened almost 10 years ago, but it is still one of my pettiest victories to this day. Back when I was 19 years old, I left my awful ex almost overnight after 4 years of being together. It wasn't a really nasty breakup, but the relationship was the worst I'd ever experienced. Now, I didn't make a scene. I just left and I moved 600 kilometers while he was at work. I was safe and I was fine. Well, one random day a few weeks later, I had received an email confirmation for some PlayStation game, and I didn't own a PlayStation and was actually confused for a few seconds. That is, until it hit me. He had used my email address for his account. I had no idea for how long, but I knew it wouldn't continue. At the bottom of the email, it was something asking, well, if this wasn't you, then click here. And you know what? I absolutely did. 2 clicks later, they thanked me for letting them know of this possible fraud and had blocked everything they had to do with this account I had no idea about. Now, I had blocked my ex, but I kinda got a hint that he was not amused at all when his best friend wrote me a really nice message saying that everything he ever bought, which was a lot, is gone, and all his progress in any game got deleted, and he would need to verify his ID and PlayStation in order to get a new account. And what a terrible human being I am. And you know what? I still smile every time I think about it because this ex absolutely deserved the trouble. Oh man, this is really funny because I can see this being a massive nuisance to probably anybody. If my account got banned for like Steam or something like that, especially in such a small way, like I would go crazy because I don't know about you, but if you're like me, you probably have like a ton of games on Steam. So not having access to that would be like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me right now. Like I would go crazy having to deal with that. And I'm sure this guy had the same experience with his PlayStation, but it seems like he deserved it. So good for the original poster. My idiotic friend literally doesn't work for 10 years while he's getting his master's degree. And despite the fact that we've been begging him to do something to put on his resume, he claims that he will figure it all out once he's graduated. But unfortunately, now that he has graduated, he literally cannot find a job. And things have gotten so bad that he's now asking to move in with me and my husband. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have a friend that moved to another state to pursue a college degree using his savings. This friend is always calling us and talking to us and asking for our advice, but rarely, if ever, puts it to use. We've come to the conclusion that it's not so much that he wants our advice, but rather he's hoping that we will be supportive of his ideas. We've been suggesting that he should have at least a part-time job while in school, so he wouldn't completely deplete his savings. His response was that he wanted the full college experience and didn't think that having even a part-time job would allow for that. Now, admittedly, I'm not empathetic here because he was starting college in his 40s. I went straight out of high school and at times worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. So the full college experience, in my honest opinion, includes financially struggling while trying to have cheap fun, but I digress. Skip ahead 4 years and he finished his bachelor's and decides that he wants to pursue a master's degree and wanting to switch from cybersecurity from accounting. Now again, he asked my husband and I for advice, and I suggest that he get a full-time job and work on the advanced degree part-time in the evenings, knowing full and well that he's pretty much depleted his savings at this point. My husband points out that in IT and cybersecurity, at least in the United States, that certifications are more important than degrees, and it's cheaper to pursue. My husband also let him know of mentors to follow online that could help get cheap or free vouchers to cover the cost of some of the certification exams to make it even cheaper for him. My husband also suggests that he get a full-time job, and if he doesn't want to use the accounting degree, then maybe try getting an entry-level help desk job, just to get the IT experience on his resume. Well, jump ahead another 4 years, and our friend decided to pursue 3 master's level degrees at the same time, all instead of getting a job. 2 of the master's degrees are in IT and cybersecurity related, and the third is an MBA. As he's finishing these degrees, my husband and I both asked if he was actively looking for a job to start after graduation. He tells us he just wants to focus on finishing school and that he'll worry about a job after he's done. We try to impress upon him that he has the resources at school for pursuing employment that would make the process easier, and it wouldn't take much time away from his studies. But his response was to say that that would still be available after graduation and that he'll deal with it then. Another 2 years later, up to present day, and he is still unemployed and complaining that since he doesn't have any work experience for the last 10 years, his resume basically only has his degrees, and he's being told his degrees make him overqualified for entry-level positions. He contacts my husband and I saying that he's researched the job market, and where my husband and I live, the market is better for cybersecurity. He then had the audacity to ask if we would sponsor him to move back to the East Coast where we live. That way, he would have an easier time applying for jobs here. Now, what's his idea of sponsorship, you might be wondering? Well, that involves living at our house for free for 6 months while he's looking for a job. And it's like, bro, absolutely not. I am not your mom, and my house, my food, my utilities, and transportation are not free for me, so they're not going to be free for you. Besides, I already gave you my 2 cents over and over, and you should have taken it instead of getting in the situation you're in right now. Okay, dude, the second you let that guy move in is the moment you will never get your house back ever again. You can bet he will live there for the rest of his life if you allow it, and he will absolutely never leave under any circumstance. And this guy has it completely backwards, by the way. The full college experience is working while going to college. It's having a part-time job that has awful hours, where you barely get any sleep and you're still getting your work done. Like seriously, this guy went a decade without working, and now he's got all these degrees and he can't do anything work-wise. Like that is so dumb. So no, I do not think you should ever let this guy move in because my God, he would never move out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for filing a police report on my neighbor after they literally scratched my car in a way that has gone down past the paint? Because right now I'm very pissed off and I seriously am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my upstairs neighbors are very careless, and today they dropped a window screen on my first newer car, and this is the one that wasn't a total crap box ready to fail. I keep it clean and nice because I worked for a while to get it to this point. Anyways, my upstairs neighbor's kid was putting in an air conditioner today, and he pushed the screen forward and out instead of sliding it up, and he was clearly fighting with it and got angry and just pushed it. Well, my car is right under their window. It somehow missed my hood and slid down the side, and I was standing outside and I saw it happen, and I was just completely baffled. He came down with a big goofy smile on his face, grabbed the screen from me, and just started to walk away. But I said to him, "You damaged my car," and he just kept walking. Granted, my upstairs neighbors don't speak much English, but it's also frustrating because you need to stay here and have a conversation with me. This isn't the first time stuff like this has happened, but today it's my car and I'm very annoyed. The dad was even working on his car in the driveway as well, and he didn't even do anything about it. I said to him, "Your son dropped a screen on my car," and he just shrugged and pointed to his tire that he was working on. Now at this point, I'm about to call the local police station to report it, but I don't want to be a jerk about it. But also, my new black car is scraped to the metal. I've also texted my landlord and they basically said, "Oh no man, that sucks." I've also tried cleaning it off, but it's just there and scraped to the paint in other little spots. So seriously, am I the jerk if I do this? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, you've tried to do this every which way possible to try and find some kind of solution. You tried talking to them directly, you tried talking to the landlord, and literally everybody's brushing you off. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, you better believe I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna get a police report going and I'm gonna be like, "Listen, these people damaged my car and they're refusing to do anything about it." Like, there's no excuse for that. If you damage someone else's property, you need to pay for it. And these people absolutely need to do that. They need to step up and do the right thing here, because you did not ask for your car to be damaged, and these people were being reckless, so that definitely means it's their fault. Today, I messed up by accidentally hiking a marathon when I thought I was going on a trail for something much smaller. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation truly is a comedy of errors. To start things out, I dabble occasionally in hiking. I've had a couple of backcountry trips in my younger years, but as of lately, I am pretty out of shape, and I'm mostly working an office job. In the past year or so, I've done maybe 5 or 6 hikes that a friend of mine would drag me on, maybe 5K, 10K max, but they felt okay. All this to say that I probably have just enough experience and little enough actual fitness to be dangerous to myself. Well, visiting a place out of town this week, I knew I wanted to do a pretty significant hike for me, and I cruised All Trails for a good one, and I found the Allmeyer Lookout at Lake Minnewaca. All Trails said that it was a 23-kilometer and an out and back hike, so I figured, okay, a challenge, but I'll hike 12, take a break at the summit, and then hike 12 back out. Knowing this is the longest I'd ever attempted, I set a boundary for myself that if I hadn't reached the summit by 2:00 p.m., I would have to turn around and kiss that gratifying view goodbye for the sake of getting back to the car by sunset, and trying to be realistic about having to trek the same distance back out. Well, my first mistake was not understanding that All Trails gives you the one-way distance of an out and back hike. I prepared myself well in the morning. Bear spray and bells, plenty of food and water, layers of clothing, sunscreen, emergency supplies, and my medications. And this is one credit I will give myself. I did ensure that I had everything I needed for a big hike. I also had this handy-dandy new Garmin watch to help me track the hike, and that was really cool. And so I set off. Hour 1 was delightful and flew by as I chatted with another family on the trail. They turned around at the first pretty bridge, and then I was on my own. Hours 2 and 3 were also lovely. I was marveling at the views, enjoying the fresh air, and generally vibing. My body felt great, even if I was feeling the burn. But oh, sweet summer child, if only she knew what was coming. Hour 4, the ascent started, and I was feeling pretty pleased with myself. I figured since it was about noon, that I was way ahead of schedule, and would certainly be at that majestic and coveted viewpoint well before 2 o'clock. I started listening to an audiobook, and channeled my inner warrior as I started huffing and puffing my way up the mountain. Well, this is where I started to crack. I severely underestimated how much harder it is to consistently hike up with no flat reprieves. Regardless, I persisted for 2 more hours. There were lots of breaks and one very nearly puking moment that I was able to stave off with some Gatorade, some banana chips, and some medicine. And thank goodness I had my pocket pharmacy with me. This is also where I peed trailside for the first time. Despite my best diligence and efforts, I did indeed find a tick on my belly later that day, which was really disgusting. All the while, I'm watching the numbers tick upwards on my Garmin. The kilometers seem to be going by so slowly, but I chalk it up to me being a chunky lady with little legs and elevation being harder and slower. Well, I summit, I take some photos, and then I head back down. And thank goodness downhill goes way quicker than up. Now for the rest, I'm thinking I was mostly in a fugue state. My phone was on low battery, so the audiobook had to stop in the interest of keeping the last of the battery for emergencies and continuing to update my safety person on my locations. So I raw dogged the long way home with just my thoughts. Thoughts like, you can do anything, even if you're slow. This will be a new personal record and the hardest part is over. I also had the thought of, oh, do I remember how to jerry-rig a tourniquet if a bear rips my arm off? Oh, and sorry, side note, did I not mention I was in grizzly territory? I mean, I didn't bring the bear spray just for funsies. The way home seemed impossibly slow. Why are the kilometers ticking by so slowly when I keep putting one foot in front of the other? I'm definitely going the right way, so I guess I'm just slower than I thought perhaps. I finally, blessedly make it back to the car, and I traveled from 8:45 in the morning all the way till 7:15 at night. I mean, what a day! I beat the sunset and I had totally expected my legs to be jelly after 24 kilometers, so I'm calling it a win at this point. I eventually get back to the hotel and a friend cheers for me, where she says that I'm crazy for doing a 24-kilometer hike. Well, proudly, I pull out the Garmin app to show her my stats, and that's when I find out that it was set in miles. 24 miles! And with 1,000 meters of elevation to boot. For all of you who aren't aware of the conversion, it's about 40 kilometers, quadruple the distance I'd ever done in a day, which is almost a complete marathon. The combo of not understanding how All Trails measures an out and back, and not looking closely at the units of measurement on that fancy new Garmin watch, means I accidentally did a marathon and didn't even know it till it was done. So anyways, it's now morning, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to walk on the plane, because my god, my legs are incredibly shaky. Oh man, that's really funny, because I don't think anybody plans on walking 24 miles, dude. Even 10 miles of walking is a lot. I can't imagine doing, what, double that and then some extra 4 for the heck of it? Holy crap, that must have been crazy. But you know what? At least you hit your new personal record, because that truly will blow any record you have out of the water. And I'm sure next time you probably will not be doing something like that in the future. Would I be the jerk if I dropped out of my friend's wedding after he derailed my career and caused me financial hardship? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my friend and I, who we will call Mark, have been friends ever since we were kids. We've been in the same industry and we worked similar roles for about 25 years. He started a contracting business in 2016, and 4 years ago, I brought him in as a vendor at the Fortune 500 where I was working. Well, Mark's business grew rapidly, and we're talking 5 times the employees and 10 times the revenue in a short time. He would often ask me to come work with him, and in 2023, he was overwhelmed and needed help, and so he convinced me to be his partner. The role in question was Director of Operations. I would basically run things and he would grow the business, and my compensation included earning equity in the business. Well, I left my secure job of 5 years with stock options, a 401k, etc. based on this offer. I emphasized my need for stability, knowing replacing the job that I left behind would take a long time and a lot of effort. For 2 years, I worked 60 plus hours a week, I traveled extensively, while Mark did nothing to grow the business. He was hard to reach and often missed meetings. His leadership was a complete disappointment. When I saw he wasn't holding up his end, I tried to secure new customers and projects, but he rejected every opportunity. This year, he's refused to take on new projects with existing customers, to the point that we've lost all of our employees. Well, last Friday he called, saying that he decided to completely shut down the business. My email access was cut off, and on Monday, I was offered 2 weeks severance and nothing for my earned share of the company. The letter states that my role has been eliminated due to downsizing and streamlining, and I now think that the promise of ownership was a lie just to convince me to run his business. His lies and actions have derailed my career and put me in a position of financial hardship. He won't answer my questions in text messaging or email and insists that I call him, but I want a paper trail. I was in Mark's first wedding, and I'm a groomsman in his second wedding this July, and at this point, I canceled the bachelor party fishing trip. So with that in mind, would I be the jerk if I dropped out of the wedding? I am too hurt by his betrayal to stand with him and pretend this is okay. What should I do? Okay, honestly, there's no way I would ever stick with this wedding. Dude, are you kidding me right now? This guy derailed your career. He took it all apart at his own self-interest. He basically lied to you and said, oh yeah, I'll give you all this stuff that you want. And then he turns around and says, oops, sorry, we're downsizing, see you later. And it's like, my god, what a crooked individual. So no, this guy does not deserve any favors, because he truly is a complete piece of garbage. My idiotic boss accused me of bullying after I literally just asked her a question in the middle of a meeting. So I decided to maliciously comply by reporting myself to human resources, resulting in a meeting that truly was a waste of time that eventually led to my boss getting fired. Here's how I did it. So years ago, I worked in a semi-public sector job as part of a successful team helping make life easy for local businesses. Our team boss took a good job in the private sector, and a new boss was recruited from a decent organization similar to ours in a different part of the country. She worked compressed hours Monday through Thursday and was off on Fridays. Well, a month or two into this, and although the new boss was quite particular about things being done her way and had upset a couple of my colleagues by criticizing their work, I'd had no problems with her. We had a team meeting where the boss said that our performance wasn't good enough, even though we were arguably the best in the country, and that she wanted to be more involved in what and how we did everything to ensure better quality, meaning that she wanted us to copy her to every client email so she could comment as needed before we sent another reply. Now, although this seemed inefficient, nobody argued, and I just asked her if it should wait until Monday for her to comment on any client emails received on a Friday. I can't remember exactly what she said, but at the end of the meeting, she asked me to stay behind and then told me in a heated tone that my question was bullying behavior and that it was unprofessional to ask the question in front of the team, and said that my actions were the sort of thing that HR would see as grounds for dismissal and that I should be very careful in the future. So I told her I understood, and when we returned to our desks, I wrote up every single detail of the entire meeting and interaction, and I sent it to the head of human resources with the explanation that as bullying was very serious and may not be reported by the victim, I felt duty-bound to report myself. I also laid it on pretty thick about being appalled by my unprofessional behavior and the fact that my career was likely at risk, and I clearly had a desperate need for training and discipline just to fix my dangerous ways. I also copied in my union representative. Well, within a day, me, my union representative, and my boss were all with the head of human resources, who, by the way, is a by-the-book professional, could find no indication of bullying or justification for my fears of an unprofessional bully in need of re-education. I was then asked to leave the meeting. My union rep stayed in, and I don't know what was said, but within 6 weeks, my boss was gone, and that same week, my big boss called me to thank me, as apparently he wanted to get rid of her but didn't know how to do it, which I truly find incredibly funny. Dude, I love the fact that you got rid of that boss because that lady sounds obnoxious. Here you are just asking a question inside of a meeting, and then she had the audacity to sit there and be like, you're bullying me, I need you to stop. And it's like, dude, nobody's bullying you. The original poster literally just asked a question, and you're trying to be like, wow, stop questioning me, you're bullying me. Like, what an idiot, what an awful boss she probably would have been. So good for you for getting this done, because honestly, that lady sounded like a basket case, and I guarantee you she's the kind of person who would happily tank your career if given the chance. Would I be the jerk if I decided not to skip my stepson's graduation, even though his biological mom is threatening to make a scene if I do show up? Because right now I feel very torn and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been married to my husband for 5 years now. His 17-year-old son is graduating high school next month, and I met him when he was 11 years old. I've never tried to be his mom, and we took things slow over the years that we've built a decent relationship. I help out where I can, and mostly I'm behind the scenes, like giving rides or school stuff, or making dinner when he's over. He casually called me his bonus mom a couple of times, which I took as a good sign. However, his mom, who we will call Jenny, has never liked me. She's never been openly hostile, but always cold and dismissive. I've never pushed her though. No drama, no trying to parent her kid. Instead, I've just tried to be supportive when he's with us. Anyways, he told me he wants me at his graduation. He said it directly and saved me a ticket. A week later, my husband gets a call from the school, and apparently Jenny emailed them and said only she and my husband will be attending, and that I shouldn't be allowed because of family issues. And we had no idea she did this. My husband called the school to clear it up, and when we asked her about it, she basically said I was overstepping and that graduation is for his real family. She told someone in the family that if I show up, she might leave or worse, not let her son attend. Well, her son still wants me there. He even told his dad, don't let her ruin it. My husband fully supports me going, but now a couple of his relatives are telling me that I should just stay home to avoid the drama. And I'll give you one guess about who called them about it. I get it's a sensitive day, but I'm not there to make a statement. I just want to show up, support him, and leave quietly like everybody else. So am I the jerk for insisting on going? Because right now I'm seriously frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for being hesitant, but in my opinion, I absolutely would be there, especially if the kid's like, look, I want you there. Because this day is not about Jenny. Jenny does not matter right now. It's the son and his graduation. And the fact that she wants to make this about herself is so unacceptable. So yeah, I think you would be the jerk if you skipped out on this graduation. If Jenny wants to make a fool out of herself, then honestly, that's on her. And I guarantee you that the son son is going to remember that for the rest of his life, and she will never live that down, which, by the way, is absolutely not your problem, and not something that you should concern yourself with in the slightest. Am I the jerk for letting my parents move to a more expensive place without telling them that I won't be coming with them, because their entire living situation hinges on the question of whether or not I can help them pay for their rent, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background, my parents are just barely making it. My mom doesn't work, and it's just my dad. Anyways, that's not important right now. My parents charge me rent nearly $600 every month, and they've been doing that ever since I was 16 years old. So back then, that was nearly all of my money. My parents are planning to move soon, and I overheard them talking about increasing my rent to $800 a month at the new place. Well, they didn't talk to me about it, and they just assumed that I'd come with them and suck up the increase. I later found out that the new place is out of my dad's price range unless I'm there paying the $800. And apparently my mom wants it because she likes it. Now here's the thing. I've quietly been applying for apartments in Texas behind their backs. I mean, I don't plan on moving with them at all. I'm ready to start building something on my own, and I want to go to college. But if I don't go with them, they can't afford the new place. So basically, they're banking on my rent to make it work. So am I the jerk for not telling them that I'm not coming and letting them move under the assumption that I'll be helping with rent? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what kind of parent is going to charge a child rent? I understand that some parents are like, oh, it's time to learn some tough love. But like, dude, just make him get a job and save up. Don't be like, okay, that'll be $600 a month, please. Especially if you have the capabilities of not only finding work, but also paying for rent yourself. Like, I can understand if there was some kind of like mutual dire situation where it's like, no, we need the money. Can you please work and help us pay rent? But in this situation, it just seems like the parents are being selfish, and they're like, no, we're going to make our son work, and we're going to make you pay $600 a month. And now with them trying to be like $800 a month, please, it just feels like they're trying to use you for their own purposes, and that's not okay. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because your parents are being incredibly toxic, and you definitely do not deserve that. My entitled toxic father quite literally broke my daughter's phone and is now refusing to pay for it. And now I'm being called the jerk all because I'm demanding that he pay for it, as it simply would be the right thing to do. But with my family turning against me, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I have a 17-year-old daughter, and my dad is in his 70s. For some background, my father has always struggled with being responsible with money. He's always spent irresponsibly, never really saved, purchased things impulsively, and has occasionally gambled. He's currently in limbo between being broke and being barely not broke. Well, yesterday, me and my daughter went to visit him and my mom for an early Mother's Day celebration. My daughter spent time alternating between being on her phone and sketching while me and my parents were talking. About 2 hours into the visit, she asked if I had a phone charger, as it was getting low, and she wanted to get some charge on it before the car ride home. My daughter has an iPhone and I have an Android, so we use different chargers, so mine didn't fit. My dad has a very cheap and old phone and offered his charger. My daughter explained though that because it was a similar style to my charger, it simply wouldn't work. She then left her phone on the counter and went into the living room. We then spent the rest of the visit watching TV with my mom in the living room while my dad was in the kitchen. When it was time to leave, my daughter went to grab her phone and started screaming and crying. I then ran in and I saw that my daughter's charging port was completely destroyed. The bottom of the screen was cracked and the lower phone frame was dented. My dad casually mentioned that he tried to charge her phone for her and that simply didn't work. I then yelled at my dad and asked him how he did not realize the phone was breaking. He said he was too focused on trying to push the charger in. I then told him that he's either going to pay for a new phone or a repair, depending on which option is deemed better. He then started arguing with me, saying that he can't afford to buy an iPhone and that my daughter can go without a phone for a while. But I argued back that my daughter does need her phone for communication with friends and family, and also for safety as we track each other with Life 360. On top of that, I'm not going to make her go without her phone because he broke it. My parents are calling me a jerk for demanding the money from them, saying that I'm taking money from poor old people. And yes, they pulled that card, but they're not going to go into poverty if they pay for this. And instead, my dad just won't be able to gamble. They always pay their bills and have food, but don't have much left over afterwards. My dad usually always blows the leftover money immediately, and my brother and sister are saying that I should just pay for the phone myself, and that my daughter's a spoiled brat for throwing a tantrum over not having her phone 24/7. So seriously, am I really that much of a jerk for demanding that he pay for a phone that he broke? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Oh my gosh, there's no way on earth I would ever let this slide. Seriously, your dad broke the phone. And by the way, how did he do that? Like, he had to have been like slapping that phone on the tabletop laptop, or really jamming that charger in there and being like, well, why isn't it working? Meanwhile, the freaking phone is breaking in his hand. Like, are you kidding me right now? This guy literally was just completely unaware of what he was doing, and that's so unacceptable. So no, you are not the jerk for making your dad pay for this. He's the one that broke it, nobody else. Any other point they're trying to bring up about whether your daughter's spoiled or not, or if she just can't live without her phone, or them trying to be like, oh, but we're old, you're gonna put us in poverty. It's like, dude, none of that matters. The only thing that matters here is that these people need to pay for it because they broke it. Because I guarantee you, if the shoe was on the other foot, then this absolutely would be your fault and there's no way you would ever get out of it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I left some money on my desk that mysteriously went missing, and now no one in my family is confessing to taking it, leaving me in a hard place where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a 25-year-old female, and this year I had to move back with my parents for monetary reasons. I am no deadbeat, I have a job, and I pay the bills and the groceries twice a week to contribute. My mother doesn't want me paying more and is happy to lend me some money when things are rough since she has a good job. However, this weekend I left with my friends for a trip to a country where euros are not used. So I left 90 euros on top of my desk under the corner of my mat, and they were very visible. Well, when I came back, they were gone. I asked my family, namely my mom, my father, and my 10-year-old brother, thinking that someone might need them and took them, or that someone didn't want to go to the ATM to go get cash, but everyone says no. I looked through my whole room, every purse, jacket, and corner, and I simply cannot find the money. The thing is, I wouldn't mind giving it away if they had asked me. I am living in their house, but I feel hurt that they took it without saying anything to me, and this is not a small amount. I suspect that my father took it, and since he lies constantly, he won't admit it. He doesn't have a job and was always obsessed with money. My problem is that when I brought this up on Monday, it triggered a fight where it was said, oh, it's not me, how could you say that? And at this point, I do not know what to do, but I want someone to come clean about this. At this point, it's not about the money, even if it is a lot for me, but about trusting and lying to me. What should I do? Okay, I gotta be honest with you, I don't think you're ever getting an answer to that money ever again, but hopefully this is a lesson for the future that no, you can't trust any of these people with your money. They're literally gonna take it and run away and be like, I didn't take it, how dare you accuse me? Like at that point, you might as well put your money in the bank and be like, okay, I can never have cash on hand, and I no longer trust you people because my god, you already stole 90 euros from me, which yeah, that's a lot of money, I don't care who you are. So hopefully in an ideal world, somebody comes clean, but in my opinion, I would not get your hopes up. My boomer father saved a whole $2,000 by not hiring movers, but exchanged that for literally having to do everything himself, and I'm still blown away by how hard he made this for himself, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. My boomer dad has always done things the hard way. He's the type to take pride in driving 24 hours straight to Florida instead of just getting a motel room, or he will DIY an unpleasant task that's cheaply and easily outsourced. He pretty much never passes up an opportunity to make things as hard as possible. It made for some pretty miserable childhood experiences when we had no choice but to be dragged along with his terrible priorities and awful plans. Fast forward to present day, and my parents are in their early 70s, and they're moving into a retirement community apartment from a house, and my dad decides he's going to get a U-Haul and do it himself, with a couple of guys helping out for a few hours one day instead of hiring movers. Apparently, $2,000 is too much to pay for something he can do himself. My mother is disabled, and my father is in decent shape. He owns a pickup truck to move smaller stuff, but he's still 73 years old. He had a bad case of bursitis in his knee recently. He's had shoulder surgery. He physically can move his own house, but he really shouldn't. I attempted to tell him this, but my mom reminded me that he can't be told anything, and now he's just gonna commit harder to prove a point. I told her the only point he's proving is that he is stubborn and makes bad decisions, but I'm gonna advocate for sane choices. And my husband and I would not be helping with anything that movers would do. I could help organize and unpack the new place, but they were not making their bad decision my problem. We just moved ourselves in December, and it was exhausting enough with movers. Add to this that they have an absurd amount of stuff, and the typical boomer mentality that everything is still worth what they paid for it, and they might need it later. Imagine a house where every time they get a new set of dishes, they shoved it into a cabinet along with every dish set they've ever owned. But apply that to everything from jackets to bed sheets. They parted with a lot of things beforehand, but it was probably 1/3 of what they really needed to purge. They also moved over too much to the new place, including obvious trash, lots of expired food, empty jars, faded towels, etc. Well, they've been moving for 2 weeks so far. The house is empty, but the basement still has stuff in it, and the large detached garage and shed are still full. I spent 4 full days helping them empty the attached garage, sort stuff out between what we're gonna keep, what we're gonna throw in the trash, and what we're gonna donate, unpack boxes, and attempt to set up and organize the new apartment. All while my mom fought me on every little thing. She moved and argued to keep flax seeds that expired in 2015 as one example. The house needs a total remodel and renovation, but it's in a highly desirable area. They got an offer the first weekend on the market for $800,000 cash, which was 2 weeks before closing and no inspection. The buyer plans to completely remodel and renovate over the summer before moving in. Yesterday, I told my dad that means they're going to gut it, and he can toss the old paint and supplies for cleaning the pellet stove. Well, this man looked at me and proudly told me he's going to clean it anyways. Even though it won't be inspected, they don't care about the condition of it, and they are almost certainly going to tear it out and replace it. He said to me, "It's not in my nature to turn over the house with the pellet stove dirty." They paid $200,000 for that house. It was totally paid off. They gained $600,000 in equity, but even then, they wouldn't spend $2,000 on movers. My dad has spent more on boat parts for his classic boat without even batting an eye, and they're moving and cleaning garbage. I'm mostly angry at myself for helping it all, but I'm honestly done. Way too much boomer nonsense for me to even pretend like I want to deal with it. Yeah, that sounds really frustrating. I can't stand that kind of attitude where it's like, oh, I'm gonna be proud about this simply because I can. It's almost like they're trying to win stupid brownie points that nobody asked about, nor is anybody keeping track of. Like that stupid pellet stove, for example. The person buying is not inspecting anything, so cleaning it is quite literally pointless. So yeah, this sounds super frustrating, and I just don't understand that mentality of not hiring a mover, because that really is the logical choice, especially if you have the money. An entitled old man yells at me for opening on time, saying that I'm too stupid to be a manager and that I have the easiest job in the world. Things got so heated that he even said he was going to report me to management, even though I literally did nothing wrong. Here's what went down. Okay, so this is mostly a rant about some entitled old man expecting me to open 40 minutes early just for him. So I work at a pastry-style shop that opens at 12 o'clock. I came in at around 11:10, so a little later than I usually would. We only have one person working per shift, so we definitely use the entire hour to open. Well, this dude comes up at 11:20, banging on the door, nonstop jiggling the doorknob, and getting his nasty breath fog on the door. Now, this was for 3 minutes nonstop, and eventually I came to the door. I said, "I'm sorry, we open at 12 o'clock. As you can see, the door is locked and the signs are off." He said, "Well, I need my pastries now." I said to him, "Sorry, but the doors will be unlocked at 12 o'clock, and I proceeded to then shut the door. He then comes back at 12 o'clock on the dot, already with a mission of destruction. He says I'm obviously too stupid to be a manager, and that I have the easiest job in the world, and it would be no problem for me to open early. But I basically just ignored him. I'm not going to apologize for opening on time. I packaged his pastries and I told him his total, and he continued to belittle me the entire transaction. Eventually, he was getting ready to leave, and I said to him, "You're welcome." And of course, he got mad at that too. He said, "Where's my thank you?" And it's like, dude, where's my thank you? So with the biggest smile, I said, "Thank you so much and have the best day." And he finally just left after that. He then said he was going to report me to management, but I already messaged my managers and they said not to let him in again. And my God, the entitlement of some people truly baffles me. Oh man, this is so crazy to me because there's no way I would have even served him in the slightest. I would not have allowed him to buy anything. I would have said, "Oh, I'm an idiot and my job's easy and I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, okay, yeah, get out of the store." The second he called me stupid is the second I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm not helping you. You can get out. Go to another pastry store and maybe learn some manners next time." Because this guy's behavior was completely unhinged and there was no good excuse for that. My boyfriend resents me because my family supports me financially, whereas his family simply doesn't. And at this point, I'm so tired of being called misprivileged that I really feel like I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend often makes snide remarks about how my family supports me financially and calls me privileged for it. For reference, we've been together for 2 years. Now, I'm an only child, my family isn't rich, but we share what we have with each other. Before my current boyfriend, I was with an ex that painted himself as a good guy up until I moved across the country with him, and he isolated me, mistreated me, stole all my money, and knocked me up. I have a 2-year-old daughter with him, but I was able to escape the situation when I was 5 months pregnant. My parents bought my plane ticket home and welcomed me with open arms. They assumed full financial responsibility for my child and I, so that I could be a stay-at-home mom on top of spending time to heal and going back to college to finish up my degree and work when I'm ready. Well, my boyfriend comes from an affluent family. However, his father passed away 2 years ago, and he was the sole breadwinner for the family, and it turned his family's life upside down. His mother is now living off the money lent from other family members, and she's also got Social Security as she is in her 70s and can't work. He works under the table at a place that doesn't pay hourly, hourly. It's literally just based on commissions. He's there for about 10 plus hours some days, but if there's no customers, he doesn't get paid a penny. On a good day, he'll make about $70, but that is so disproportionate to what he should be making for that amount of time worked. He is really angry about not having much money, but also refuses to look for another job out of loyalty to his boss, who is also his friend. He's always upset about being late on payments, as well as his mom asking him for money. I feel bad for him, and I try to be as understanding as I can, and I know he's under a lot of stress financially, and I never ask him for anything or expect anything from him. I just want his company. Anyways, he's been making more and more jabs at me about being misprivileged for taking handouts from my parents, and not having to work while he works 5 days a week and is still struggling to make ends meet. All my parents help me out with is my $25 a month phone bill, as well as providing food and clothing from the thrift store for my daughter. I left everything I had when I left my ex, and I came home to my parents and lived minimalistically, but my boyfriend had many payments he's responsible for, namely the car, the phone, the credit card, student loans, helping his mom, etc. I'm trying to be empathetic towards him, and I know he has it much harder than me, but there's nothing I can do about it, and I don't think that I should be ashamed for having a family that takes care of me when I'm down. So is there a way to navigate this and put an end to this weird, jealousy that he has? I feel that the only way he'll be happy is if I struggle alongside with him, but I seriously don't want to or need to do that, because at this point I really don't know what to do. Dude, your boyfriend sounds super toxic. Seriously, who in their right mind would be like, oh wow, you're just so privileged. Your family cares about you and you get money. Good for you. Wow. Oh man. Like, dude, what are you talking about? This is your girlfriend. Why are you treating her like the enemy? She didn't do anything to you. She's not the reason you have all these problems. If anything, it sounds like the original poster wants to be supportive of their boyfriend, but instead he's taking it out on her in some kind of weird jealous rage. And this, by the way, is absolutely gonna ruin this relationship if he's not careful, because I know if I had a partner who did this, I would be very pissed off. So yeah, this is super sketchy, and this is definitely a red flag that I would not ignore. I sold my laptop to an old friend at a huge discount, but now his girlfriend is interfering and saying that he'll only pay for it if he gets the laptop first. And I'm now at a point where I'm questioning my entire friendship with this guy, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I've been friends with this guy for over 10 years. We met in an online game, we live in different cities, and have met in person a couple of times. And this is usually when I visit his city with my boyfriend. But even still, we have been through a lot together. I supported him through some really hard times. When he broke up with his ex and wanted to move out of his parents' house, I offered him my apartment for way below market price, essentially just covering utilities like water, electricity, and heating. I lent him money, about $500 with no fixed repayment deadline. I even helped him get into a free training program for a new profession, as he does only have a high school diploma, and now I'm trying to get him an internship at my workplace under my recommendation so that he can move up from his tech support job. He and his girlfriend are barely scraping by. I also never kept score. I always considered him a real friend, and yes, he's been there for me too, whether it's advice or just a listening ear when things are rough. There was a time when he was desperate to move out of his parents' house but couldn't afford rent. At the same time, I had an apartment I was renting out, and as I mentioned, I offered it to him for whatever he could afford, but he declined for various reasons. The first red flag came when he decided to move 1,532 miles away for a girl he had never met in person. I mean, he decided to move in with this girl he'd only known for about 6 months and live with her. He said he needed money for rent, he needed plane tickets, etc. And then he asked me for a loan. I even suggested they both move to my city instead. Of course, it's not my place to decide, but it seems so strange to me. She's only moving 50 miles from her hometown, while he's leaving everything behind. Things like friends and family, and moving 1,500 miles to be completely dependent on her. But he had already made up his mind. So I gave him the money again without asking for a return date, and I just said, okay, send it back whenever you can. Still, it really stung. I live way closer, only 930 miles from him, just a 2-hour flight away. I had invited him multiple times to visit, not to move in or anything, just to hang out, meet my dog, grab a meal together, but he never did. So I said to myself, okay, we're just friends, I get it. Fast forward to now, and I listed my old but perfectly still functioning MacBook Pro for sale. I initially wanted to sell it for about $800, and half jokingly, I sent him the listing and offered to sell it to him. It turns out he really wanted a MacBook and had been checking listings but couldn't afford even a used one. I asked how much he could pay, and he said $650. I offered it to him for $530 just as a friendly gesture, and he said he didn't have the full amount up front and asked to pay in 6 monthly installments. And you know what? I agreed. Then I went on vacation. My boyfriend and I were working on the house, relaxing, and I just started looking for the best way to ship the laptop. I had never shipped electronics before, store, and I wanted to make sure it would be safe. I found some old boxes and some old foam, and ordered some additional supply seal tape for security reasons. Amazon, of course, delayed the delivery, so shipping was pushed back a little bit. Now, at this point, he had not made the first payment yet, so I asked when he could, and he said May 7th. Well, by May 10th, I got my shipping supplies, and I told him I'd sent the laptop over the weekend. And that's when he messaged me, "Okay, once you ship it, I'll send you the money." Now, at this point, I laughed and I teased him about not trusting me, but then he explained that it wasn't him, it was his girlfriend. She had told him not to send me the first payment of $100 until he received the laptop, and he just passed it on to me like it was totally a reasonable argument. Well, she said to wait until it arrives, and it's at that moment that it finally hit me. I'm not some random stranger from Craigslist. I'm his friend, someone he's known and trusted for over a decade. So what would you do in my place? Given everything I've done for my friend, I'm starting to wonder, what if someday his girlfriend just tells him to cut me off and he agrees? What should I do? Okay, this is really sketchy because it sounds like for a while now, your friend has been using you and not reciprocating this in the slightest. Like, this guy's always asking you for money or favors, and yet the second you're like, "Hey, can you pay me back in a timely manner?" he pulls this weird card of like, "Oh yeah, as soon as you ship it over." And it's like, dude, wait a second, this is not fair at all. You need to pay for the item I'm sending you. This is expensive. Not to mention the fact that he still owes you money from a loan. Like, what's going on right now? Where does this guy get off expecting he can get away with stuff like this? So for me, the second he would start acting like this is the moment I would be like, okay, I don't think he's actually my friend. The care I'm showing him is not being reciprocated, and this is not worth my time. Because truly, it sounds like he doesn't care about you in the same way that you care about him. And in my opinion, at least if I was in your shoes, this really would be the last time I would help him out with something like this. An entitled old jerk nearly hits me with her car, all while I'm riding my bike. So I decide to get some revenge by riding close to her car and pretending to key it as I drove off. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was riding my bike today on a road that is somewhere between a side road and a connecting road. The speed limit is 35 miles an hour, but it rarely gets up that fast at the time I was riding on it. I generally follow all traffic laws. I ride with my helmet on, etc., but I do try to be cognizant and non-obstructive of traffic. Where I enter this road, traffic is usually going about the speed limit or slightly slower. About a mile past that though, it slows down significantly. It terminates in a busier intersection, so there's usually a long line of cars going 5 to 10 miles an hour after that. Shortly before reaching the slowed cars, an old lady laid on her horn as she passed me, and passed obnoxiously close too. I mean, I could have literally kicked her car, she was so close. Normally, I would just take a place behind a car and follow the flow of traffic to my destination, which is before the intersection. However, the lady was only a few cars ahead, so I rode up the shoulder right next to her. I got her attention and I held up my keys, then made it look like I was keying her car. Well, she started flipping out as I flipped her off and I rode off into the sunset. I was on an e-bike and she was stuck in traffic, so there's no way she was ever going to catch up with me. I wouldn't actually damage someone else's property like that. You know, who needs that kind of exposure? But I do hope that she took some time after that to evaluate her actions. Oh man, I love this so much because seriously, you were not doing anything wrong. You're literally just riding your bike and I'm assuming out of the way. Like you said it yourself, you're cognizant of what's going on and you're non-obstructive to traffic. So the fact that you got back at this old lady who was just trying to like mess with you, in my opinion, is absolutely amazing. My crazy neighbor quite literally poisons the water that goes to my yard and also demands full access to my property. But instead of giving in to this psycho Karen, I decide to match crazy with crazy by getting my lawyer involved in this entire process, as I'm determined to make sure that this crazy behavior is stopped right here and right now. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I live on a large property with a small house in the front. There are many small hot springs in the semi-rural mountain area that I live in, with many used by homeowners in their backyard. Many are piped indoors, but some have hot tubs built around them, and I happen to have an active one in my backyard near my left neighbor's house. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this the crazy neighbor, and trust me, they truly are. A small stream runs through the far backyards of the neighborhood, and it's used for gardens and little nature areas that everyone on the street enjoys. I have my small fruit and pepper garden watered by this stream, and I take really good care of it. For some visualization, it has a good amount of water flowing down, and everyone on the street uses it in some way. My right neighbor, who's a really chill dude, who I will call Jay for the sake of the story, has small pools that he made that are fed by the stream, and 2 neighbors down has a garden similar to mine. Now with that bit of context out of the way, this is where things get really crazy. When I bought the house, the previous owners were sued by this crazy neighbor, with her claiming that the land was rightfully hers. I don't know the details of her argument, but it was thrown out as far as I know. The The previous owners warned me about this crazy neighbor and told me not to engage with her family. When I moved in, the crazy neighbor's kids, all three of them, brought over some cookies and welcomed me into the neighborhood. I thought that the previous owner was exaggerating, as they seemed so sweet. So I invited the crazy neighbor and her family to a small barbecue, and they accepted. Well, the second that they got in the house, this neighbor started to explain the rules of the neighborhood. I thought it was pretty normal, like not to play loud music after 9, keep your car in the driveway to keep the street uncluttered, etc. Just some common sense rules, right? Well, that is until she got to some rules regarding the stream and the hot springs. She said that kids were allowed in all parts of the stream, even in private backyards, and that everyone could use each other's hot springs. And when I heard this, I was surprised because I have the only hot spring on the street. I then interrupted her and I told her that I wasn't comfortable with those, and she literally scoffed, saying that all neighbors were fine with it. I told her that I still wasn't comfortable with it, but she just ignored me, continuing with some questionable rules. The rest of the night was fine, but I felt like I wouldn't want to do that again. I talked to some neighbors across the next couple of days who all told me to steer clear of that crazy neighbor and that her rules were complete BS. I then went over to this crazy neighbor's house and I told her that I had talked to the other neighbors and that I was not comfortable with anyone being in my backyard without my permission. Well, she let out a scoff and said, okay. I then had lunch with Jay and he told me who this crazy neighbor was. She is a serial suer with her lawyer on speed dial to get whatever she wants. She had even sued a small chain pizza place in town into debt for having peanut oil on her pizza when she was allergic to it. But the pizza chain didn't even have peanut oil, and many people in the small community believe that she put it on it. But even still, they lost everything. So I decided not to ever talk to her or her family ever again. Well, a week later, I got home from the grocery store and I see the crazy neighbor's kids splashing in my hot spring tub. And for reference, it is outside, and usually it has a lid on it that two small kids would definitely not be able to take off as it is heavy and large. I then tell them that they're not allowed in it and to leave my yard immediately. But you know what? They stand their ground, telling me that their mom told them that it was theirs and that they could use it whenever they wanted. I told them that that's not true and to leave right now. Well, they finally do. And before you think that I'm a jerk for that, remember that pools and hot tubs are dangerous, and I don't want to be liable. I then headed back out to buy locks for my gates. When I got back, this crazy neighbor was now there, demanding why I kicked her kids out. She then tried to remind me of these rules, but I told her to leave immediately and that my security camera was recording. She then cursed at me for a minute or two and then she left. Now, I was bluffing as I did not have security cameras, but I did order them on Amazon that night. The next day was fine, where I replanted a lot of my plants from my apartment's balcony into the empty garden. And it was then that I noticed this crazy neighbor kept looking over the fence. For the following weeks, this neighbor complained about the trees in my yard, the color of the fence, what I'm doing with my stream, etc. Jay occasionally came over and told her to F off, but 3 weeks ago, I left for a couple of days for a friend's wedding, and I kept getting security alerts saying that there was motion in my backyard. And often it was her kids playing in my garden, trampling all of my peppers. I then texted Jay to tell them to get out. Now, if you're wondering why not call the police, well, they wouldn't do anything as they're just some kids. I had a suspicion that this neighbor was telling them to do these things, but I didn't have much evidence. On the drive back, I got a security alert that there was motion in my backyard. I didn't check as I was driving, but when I stopped for gas, I checked and saw this neighbor instructing a plumbing team to install piping from my hot spring into their yard. Well, I saved all the footage from that interaction, and I sent messages to Jay about it. Jay told them that they weren't allowed to be doing that, but since it wasn't his house, they didn't listen to him. I called the police and they went, but they had already installed the piping. In fact, this team was just leaving the gate with my broken lock on the ground when the police showed up. They said that they had been hired by the homeowner. The police waited for me to get there while talking to the team of workers, and I told them that I was the homeowner and that I hadn't paid them to do it. Well, at this point, they looked confused. I then went with the police into my backyard, and I started ripping the unsecured piping out with a crowbar. This crazy neighbor then starts shrieking from her yard and puts her head over the fence and starts yelling that I'm destroying private property and that she would sue me. This neighbor then says that she has a contract with the owner of the house to literally have my hot spring water. Well, the police are now confused. She then shows a contract that read that she was paying me $2 per month in exchange for water. Now, of course, this neighbor won't give it to me so I can look at it, besides waving it around in the air. The police eventually leave and warn me not to destroy the piping, but I ripped up the small pipe that connects to the source as she's telling me that she'll see me in court. I contacted my lawyer and she said that this neighbor has no case as she didn't know my signature and it would be easy to prove that it was forged. And while I still haven't been served by this neighbor's lawyer, I do know that it will be soon. In the meantime, I've been sitting in the hot tub for long baths while talking to myself loudly about how much I love it. And And sure, it's petty, but it made me feel good hearing the growls from across the fence. Now this is the final thing that made me post here. My garden is wilting and dying at an unnatural rate. I heard a commotion come out of this neighbor's yard, and I peeked over and I saw her slowly pouring a massive jug of chemicals into the communal stream, which literally goes down to mine. I don't know if it was a plant killer or something like bleach, but it's rapidly destroying my plants. And I haven't eaten any of the fruit or peppers since I'm worried I might get sick. I think if I can get definitive proof of her doing it, I can maybe use it in court to prove how crazy she is. People swim in pools from the stream, so I warned Jay not to for the time being, and I told him to tell other people. I know one neighbor removed her garden from the soil and moved it away from the stream just in case it got down to hers. I'm unsure of what I should do next. I don't think I live in a two-party consent state for video recording, as it doesn't list it as one on the PDF that I found. But honestly, regardless, I feel so annoyed by this that I just seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is some crazy stuff because the original poster has a lot of updates for it, and they literally go through everything from like damming up the stream at the very start of it, as well as testing the pH levels, and then eventually going back and forth between this crazy neighbor as well as getting lawyers involved. At one point, this psycho neighbor even takes out the original poster's like power, like they go to their house and like flip the breaker. It's like, dude, what is going on right now? This lady is out of her mind if she thinks she can act like this. And apparently this is someone in their 40s. Like, dude, you've got to be a special kind of crazy to be acting like that. I don't know if there's any like substances involved. I know the original poster doesn't mention that, but from the sounds of it, they're going through their lawyer and they're going through the proper steps to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else ever again. Because apparently this has been going on for years. Can you imagine living next to someone like that? Like, I can't. I can't imagine my every waking moment dominated by that weirdo. Like, that would literally just drive me crazy. I couldn't do it. So good for the original poster for taking the steps necessary to protect themselves and their property, because this crazy neighbor truly is just that. They're absolutely insane, and you do not deserve to be treated like this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom is holding me responsible for the way my younger siblings dress, claiming that my younger siblings are copying me and that I need to fundamentally change how I dress just to make her happy. Here's what's going on. I'm 22 years old and I've been living at home while I finish my last 2 terms of nursing school that I have left. And trust me, it's been very rough here. I'm honestly frustrated. My mom constantly tells me what I wear isn't appropriate and that my younger siblings are copying me. But I really don't think I dress badly or overly revealing. I usually wear maxi skirts, maxi dresses, and yes, I do wear crop tops sometimes, but my overall style leans more towards a boho aesthetic. What I wear fits me well, and while I may have a slight bit of appeal, I don't think I look provocative. I just happen to have curves that I can't exactly control. She told me that she'd prefer I wore my flowy blouses, looser pants, maxi skirts that aren't as fitted, crew neck tops, less jewelry, and less makeup. But the crazy part is that she wears super tight tops with cleavage out, tight clothing in general, and even shorts where her butt is literally hanging out. There was even a time where I wore a maxi tube dress, and she told me that I looked naked, but a couple weeks later, she wore the exact same style dress except hers was way shorter. On top of that, I've noticed some of my clothing has gone missing, and I've seen that she's been stealing and wearing my clothing. And because she's bigger than me, my clothes end up stretched out. I even found some of my things hidden in a bin. When I bring it up, she says stuff like, I'm grown, and reminds me that when she had me at 20, she had to change the way she dressed because she had a daughter watching her. But that makes no sense because she has 2 other daughters. But somehow I'm the one who has to change? And honestly, I don't think me changing my wardrobe is going to stop them from wanting to wear those things anyways. I think it's more about their friends and what's popular at school, but when I tell her that, she keeps blaming me, and it's really starting to piss me off. On top of all of that, she keeps making comments about me buying things for myself, and how she couldn't do that because she had me. But I don't constantly spend money or splurge. I buy what I need or occasionally treat myself, and I keep up with my maintenance. And it's not like I don't help out around the house either. I always pitch in when needed. I'm just tired of being made out to be the bad influence when I'm really just trying to live my life. I'm minding my own business and not even doing anything extreme. So has anyone ever dealt with this kind of double standard? How do you deal with it without completely losing your mind? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, your mom's obnoxious. She's clearly like projecting in some kind of way, because guess what? You're not responsible for your younger siblings. That is such a weird stretch in logic. It just honestly is super annoying. So no, you're not at fault here. You haven't done anything wrong. And if your mom's upset with the way your sisters are dressing, then she needs to start with herself and set a good example instead of trying to shift that blame over to you. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for breaking my friend's phone, all because he broke mine previously and never apologized for it. Because right now I feel like I made a mistake and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, a while ago, my friend and I were hanging out, and for the sake of the story, I'll call my friend Alex. Alex is not their real name. We were both in a bit of a stupid mood, and I guess the vibe was off, but nothing too major. At some point, I set my phone down on the table, and when I turned my back, Alex accidentally knocked my phone off the table, and it landed face first on the floor. The screen cracked, and I was pretty upset about it. Like, yeah, accidents happen, but I wasn't thrilled. But here's the thing. Alex didn't apologize or offer to help pay for it, and when I asked him if he was going to do anything about it, he kind of shrugged it off. I was like, okay, cool, whatever, but it felt pretty dismissive. Fast forward a few days and we were hanging out again, and this time Alex's phone was on the same table. This time though, I didn't accidentally knock it off, but I definitely picked it up, slammed it on the floor, and watched the screen shatter. I was furious, and I felt like he needed to understand how annoying it was to have something important broken without even a basic apology. Well, now Alex is really mad at me, saying I went too far and that I should have just talked to him about it instead of escalating things. My other friends are divided, and some think that I had the right to get back at him, but others think that it was childish and that I should have just let it go. So am I the jerk for breaking his phone in return? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're absolutely the jerk here. You seriously should have talked to him before throwing his phone on the ground like that. That is so inappropriate and incredibly rude. And I'm willing to bet you did way more damage to the phone than just cracking the screen. If it really bothered you that much that he cracked the screen by accident, and from the sounds of it, it really was not on purpose, unlike what you did, then you should have talked to him and said, hey man, this is really not cool, I need you to pay for this. Because seriously, two wrongs do not make a right here, and the fact that you felt it was okay to throw his phone on the ground, in my opinion, is completely insane. My manager decides to give me the runaround, all because I was trying to take 2 days off to go to my cousin's wedding. But after she said no, I decided to maliciously comply and get some serious revenge by taking all 23 of my unused PTO days all at once, leaving her to deal with all my work and all the fallout in the process. Here's what happened. So my new manager comes in loud, talking about structure and consistency. Suddenly, there's no work from home, no flexible hours, no swapping PTO. I asked to move 2 days for my cousin's wedding, and she goes on to say, sorry, we can't make exceptions for anyone. It would be unfair. All right then, so I put in a request for all 23 of my unused PTO days straight through the end of the quarter, with no overlap and no coverage. And you know what? It got approved in like 10 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is fantastic. But after that, a couple days later, she's in full panic mode. She comes to me and says, wait, who's handling your workload? I say to her, I don't know. I assumed you had a plan. No exceptions, right? So she had to cover me and deal with all of the fallout. Stuff piled up, clients got pissy, and 2 people even quit. And I eventually came back to the new human resources memo. It said the following: managers can now approve flexible PTO on a case-by-case basis. So I guess it turns out fair looks different when you're the one getting screwed over. And my boss learned the hard way that she doesn't want to be the one on the receiving end of karma ever again. Oh man, I love this so much because this kind of stuff happens all the time when you've got a new manager who's like, oh yeah, we're gonna change things around here. And it's like, dude, this is never gonna end well. You're only gonna ruin everything for everybody else, and it's gonna be a pain in the neck. So good for you for getting this PTO and using all of it all at once, because the way she was treating you, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for booking my own Airbnb so that I don't have to sleep on a couch for 6 nights? Because after my aunt miscounted, I am now the odd one out, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my immediate and extended family have booked a vacation for later in the summer. My aunt who found this place knew the owner, and they got a great deal. And my aunt initially said there are 6 bedrooms. 1 room for her and my uncle, 1 room for my parents, 1 room for my cousin and her husband, 1 room for my other cousin and his wife, and 1 room for their kids who are both under 10 years old. Now the last bedroom, you may be wondering, is where my aunt made an innocent mistake in miscounting. There are only 5 bedrooms. They told me that my boyfriend and I will have to sleep on a pull-out couch. I told my parents I would rather not sleep on a couch even if it does pull out. I also don't want to make my boyfriend sleep on the couch with me either, and that's literally for his own privacy. It's in the living room, which is in the middle of everything. I would rather not be woken up to people starting their day, and I would rather not have to change in the bathroom each and every time, or even leave all my stuff in the living room as well. I don't want to change in my parents' room either, because I know I would probably rush so that they would have their own privacy. I don't want to put my luggage in anyone else's room and fill their room with my clutter. The same goes for my boyfriend. I don't want to make him do all that either. My family has never had this big of a vacation all together in such a long time. I would love to be involved in whatnot, but I said I would rather not go if I can't have a room to myself, or I'll book my own place nearby, and I will pay for my part for the main house everyone is in regardless. My mom refused both options as I will apparently ruin the trip if I don't stay under the same roof. If I get my own place to stay, it would solely be to sleep. I plan to be with my family at all other times and events. I don't care about the price of only getting an Airbnb just to sleep. I want my privacy. I haven't mentioned it to my cousins or anyone else yet that I'm considering getting my own place as close as possible though. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this really is unfair for you and I don't blame you for being pissed off. I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. I would feel very slighted and very pissed off because I'm right there with you. I want my own space that I can do whatever I want with. So for them to be like, oh, you'll just sleep on the pull-out couch and no, you can't go anywhere else. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. If I want to book my own Airbnb, I absolutely can do that and nobody's gonna tell me otherwise. So no, you would not be the jerk in my opinion, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. Am I the jerk for always dumping lemon juice all over my food? Because one girl I was on a trip with complained that when she tried to eat my leftovers, they were way too soaked in lemon juice to be edible, leaving me wondering if I'm the one at fault here or if she should not have been sniffing around at my food in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I might be the jerk here and I will accept my judgment regardless of what it really is. I grew up in a big household where all food and leftovers were fair game, even when I became old enough to buy my own food. To combat this, I started absolutely drowning my food in lemon juice. I could tolerate the taste and even grew to quite like it. So because of this, no one would touch my prepared foods or leftovers. It's a habit that I've carried well into my adulthood. I recently went on a large trip with some girlfriends. The Airbnb and excursions are evenly split. Food is paid for by ourselves because some people have specialty allergies. We have been going out to dinner the last few nights, and I always ask for extra lemons at the table. That way I can soak my food before eating. After a couple of days into the trip, one of the girls complained at breakfast that I was making food inedible to other people. Now this was news to me since the only food I was lemoning was my restaurant leftovers that I would eat the next day. Now what apparently had been happening since the first night was that one of the girls, namely the one who complained, stays up later than the rest of us and would eat or pick at any leftovers, disregarding the names on the containers. After trying my food on 2 separate occasions, she realized what I was doing and was pissed off. I said that she shouldn't be eating other people's foods that weren't communal, and she said to me, well, it's just how the rest of us feel. But no one else at the table said anything and the breakfast was really tense. Later on, while getting ready to go out, the other girls told me that they didn't like their leftovers being eaten, and they were glad that I said something but didn't want tensions going forward. That night at dinner, I purposefully lemoned my food again. The complainer made an angry noise and stormed off to the bathroom. I didn't say anything, and the rest of our dinner continued normally without her, until she came back out sniffling before we left the restaurant. She even gave me dirty looks the entire ride back. I am exhausted by this nonsense drama, but maybe I am being the jerk here. So truly, am I at fault? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your friend's an idiot. She literally decided to start eating all of your food and be like, wow, this is not to my liking. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. You shouldn't be eating my food in the first place. And even your friends agree with you, but they're too much of a coward to speak up and say anything. So no, you're not the jerk at all. If you want to pour lemon juice all over your food, then guess what? That's your right. It's your food after all. And the fact that this one lady is trying to complain about it and be like, the rest of us don't like that. She's clearly trying to speak for everybody in the group, even though that is definitely not true. And that truly is super obnoxious. An entitled jerk treats me like garbage as I'm trying to show him my trailer that I'm trying to sell off. But instead of selling it to him, I decided to get some revenge by literally selling it to the next person at the exact same price, sticking it to this guy in a way that he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so one early spring, I decided to sell our travel trailer. It was only a few years old, it looked new inside and out, it was priced right, and it was the prime time of the year to sell. And I knew that it would be gone after a showing or two. The first family shows up after an odd phone call. The wife does all the talking, but made it clear that her husband, who we will call Glenn, makes the decisions in the family. She asked a ton of questions on the phone so that she could give the info over to Glenn. Glenn is in the room with her as this is all going on, and this is really weird, but whatever. So they roll in and I meet with Glenn. He tries to avoid eye contact and is trying to play a power game. The wife and kids are in love with the camper. They're polite and they're incredibly friendly, but Glenn is a massive jerk. As I answer his questions, he occasionally smirks, worse. And at this point, I'm not interested in selling him dog crap fresh from my backyard, but I'm not lowering myself to his behavior. I give him the respect he deserves, taking the high road, since his poor wife and kids don't need to see me telling him to get lost. Eventually, Glenn says, "I'm gonna give you the price you're looking for, and we'll be back next weekend with the check." He then barks at his wife and kids to go get back in the car. I tell him that I did not agree to any price. Maybe it will still be around next weekend, maybe not. He then smirks again and drives away. But Glenn's price was exactly what I would have accepted from any potential buyer who was not a jerk. At that point, I was clear about one thing. Glenn will never end up with my camper. Fast forward, and the next day, a couple shows up to look at the trailer. They are slack-jawed at the price and condition and ask what I will take for it, as they can meet me later in the day with cash. So I offer to sell it to them for Glenn's price. A few hours later, I have a fat stack of $100 bills in hand, and they leave with the trailer thrilled with the deal. Well, next Friday comes along, and just as expected, Glenn's mistreated wife calls in. She tells me that they got a loan and want to pick the trailer up tomorrow, but I play dumb and I ask what she means. And after she explains it again, I drop the news. I say to her, "I'm so sorry, but it's gone." I told her that all Glenn had to do was respectfully offer the amount he told me I would be taking, and then leave a deposit check, and you would be picking up your camper tomorrow. I reminded her that she was standing right there when I told Glenn that we had not agreed to a price, and it was still very much for sale to whomever wanted it. Finally, I told her to make sure that Glenn knows that it's sold for his price the next day. And it's so sad because it seems like Glenn was a jerk, but I decided to be a bigger jerk just to get back at this entitled weirdo. I love this so much because I can't stand customers who act like this, regardless of the circumstance. They try to act like God and they pretend like, "Oh yeah, my word is law, and you're gonna take exactly what I give you." So good for you for standing your ground. I love the fact that you gave it to someone else for this guy's price, because his behavior, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by getting a tattoo of my mom in a bikini without my knowledge beforehand of what this tattoo actually meant, and I'm now feeling really dumb and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad passed away a few months ago. I was really close to him and I miss him a lot. My dad had quite a few tattoos, but one of them I remember dearly. It was this pinup style tattoo of a lady in a Hawaiian shirt and a coconut bra on his calf. I always liked that tattoo, even though it was pretty badly done. Most of the color vanished over the years, and I remember our dad letting us color in the tattoo with markers when he wanted to take a nap or just to keep us busy. My mom always disapproved, and I never understood why until now. One day, about 2 weeks after he passed away, I was walking around the city and came by a tattoo shop. One thing led to another, and I walked out of that shop with the same tattoo my dad had, the lady with a coconut bra. The artist did a great job at recreating the tattoo, and I was very happy. That is, until I got home and I wanted to show my mom. My aunt was there, who is my dad's sister, and started laughing like crazy. And my mom looked quite shocked, which is not the reaction I was expecting at all. I didn't understand what was happening until my aunt told me. She said to me, "Well, now you've got your mom on you forever in a skimpy outfit. Great choice." Well, long story short, my dad got this tattoo about a year after they started dating. She wore this outfit to a party, took a photo, and he got it tattooed a few weeks later. So I'm thinking to myself, great, this is just great. I was a bit confused because my mom has always had blonde hair, and the tattoo lady's got black hair, but apparently she had a short phase of dyeing her hair black for a few months. My mom always hated that tattoo, and they almost broke up because of it back then. And she made him swear that he's never gonna tell anyone the story behind that tattoo, hence why I don't know anything about it and I never asked about it. I thought this was a random tattoo that he got on one of his many vacations. And well, now I have a tattoo of my mom in a coconut bra. Great. My mom told me she doesn't mind and that it's kind of funny now, but I'm really thinking of getting it removed. At least it's on my rib cage so I can hide it for the time being. I really don't want to show the world my mom in a bikini, and at this point I seriously am not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think this is nearly that big of a deal as you might think it is. Like sure, this was some kind of conflict between your mom and dad, but I think for you it means so much more. You did it with the intent of remembering your dad, but now I guess you get to remember your mom as well. So if I was in your shoes, I would just embrace it and be like, okay, I'm just gonna keep it. I would not get it removed and I would just go with it. Because sure, it is embarrassing to an extent, but honestly, I think this really can work out in your favor. Today, I'm wondering if I overreacted when I walked out of a job interview within 2 minutes, all because the interviewer was on their phone the entire time. Here's what went down. Okay, so I arrived for an interview for a senior role that I'm very qualified for in a mid-sized company, and this was a very well-presented place. Now, the interviewer, who would have been my direct senior, arrived 20 minutes late, barely greeted me, before asking me to tell me about myself myself while looking at their phone the entire time. They didn't make eye contact once. They just leaned back with very nonchalant body language. Not the best first impression, but I was very impressed with the job offering when the recruiter called. I stopped speaking out of disbelief, and when they looked up and said, "Sorry, that's so rude," and they said they were looking at my resume while I was speaking. But you know what? I doubled down, and I just said I find it incredibly rude to be on your phone during the interview. I said thank you, but we can definitely stop here. I then shook hands and then I left. Everything was cordial, but I was furious the entire way home. So seriously, I need to know, did I overreact in this situation? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made the right choice. Okay, in my opinion, I do not think you overreacted at all, because if I was at a job interview like this and they literally were not paying attention, I would probably get really pissed off as well. Like seriously, that is so inappropriate and there is no good excuse for that kind of behavior. Am I the jerk for not begging my boyfriend to still date me when he literally broke up with me over text messaging? Because he claims that I should have come back and begged for him to bring me back into his life. And now that I'm moving on and moving out of state, he's freaking out and becoming super emotional. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, my now ex-boyfriend of 2 years randomly texted me saying that he wasn't happy anymore. I called him right away and he said he would call me back, but he never did. When I tried again later, he ignored the call and just texted, "I'm done." For a couple of days, I wasn't even sure if he was seriously breaking up with me. I kept reaching out hoping that we could talk things through, but he ignored every text and call. Eventually, he told me that initial message was his way of ending things and that he thought it was obvious. Well, fast forward to yesterday and we met up because we agreed to try being friends. I started sharing my plans like moving out of state and traveling, and suddenly he just got emotional. He started crying, asking how I could just leave him like that. And I'm sitting here thinking, didn't you leave me? Then he said that he was still in love with me, that he wanted to be with me, and that when he sent that breakup text, I was supposed to chase after him, like show up at his place and beg. Apparently, ignoring me was part of some test that I was supposed to pass. I mean, I had no idea. I just thought he didn't care enough to answer his phone. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I'm still very confused. Dude, you dodged a train on this one. There's no way you're the jerk. If this guy really feels like he has to test you in this relationship, then trust me, it's probably not a relationship you want to be in. That's the sign of someone incredibly emotionally immature, and my God, you do not need that kind of energy in your life. Am I overreacting for canceling my mom's Mother's Day dinner after she told my 10-year-old son that he ruined her life? Here's what went down. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a single mom to my amazing son who we will call Liam for the sake of the story. His dad left when I was pregnant, and my mom was never exactly thrilled about me having a kid so young. She was always kind of passive-aggressive about it, but never outright cruel. Well, that is until now. I had been planning a nice Mother's Day dinner for her, like actually went all out, cleaned my apartment top to bottom, prepped her favorite lasagna from scratch, had Liam help me make a handmade card, and even bought her flowers, which is really hard considering the fact that I'm broke. She then came over at around 5:00 p.m. and all of it seemed fine. Then, during the dinner, out of nowhere, she says, and I quote, "You know what? If you had not had Liam, I could have retired already. I gave up so much because of your choices. He ruined everything." Liam just froze, like literally stopped chewing and looked down. I immediately told her that is completely out of line, but she just shrugged her shoulders and said, "Well, it's the truth. Someone had to say it." I told her that she needed to leave. She tried to laugh it off like I was being dramatic, but I insisted. I didn't yell and I didn't curse. I just calmly asked her to pack her things and go. After she left, I comforted my son the best that I could. He didn't cry, but I could tell that it crushed him. Now, here's where I may be the jerk. My 2 brothers and my sister found out I canceled the rest of our Mother's Day plans as we were supposed to go to brunch the next day. They're now calling me sensitive and saying I blew it out of proportion and that mom is just old school. But I don't care if she's from the 1920s. You don't say that to a child, especially not one who's literally never done anything but love her. So truly, am I overreacting for canceling the celebration and asking her to leave? Or am I just finally done letting her get away with emotional landmines? What should I do? Holy crap, this lady is super toxic. She literally said that to a 10-year-old. This 10-year-old kid didn't ruin her life. This kid didn't even do anything to her. Like, all he's done is try to be kind and considerate, and the original poster's mom just goes off and treats him like garbage for no good reason. And you know what? That is so disappointing. So no, you did not overreact because your son did not deserve that kind of treatment. Would I be the jerk for wearing deodorant even though someone may be allergic to it, namely my teacher who is apparently incredibly sensitive? Here's what's going on. Okay, so at the beginning of the second semester, we got a new teacher. This teacher said that she had a scent sensitivity and couldn't be around any perfumes or fragrances. Now, the people in my family have the same thing, so all my deodorant and my soaps are completely unscented. Well, I continue wearing this deodorant for months, and I sit in the front of the class. And you know what? This teacher has never seemed to react to it. Also, some of my friends put on scented products in the morning, and she never reacted to that even though you could clearly smell it. Well, yesterday I had a gym class and it ran over. I had to change into my school uniform and had no time to apply the deodorant. The bell rang and I was late for class. I reapplied the deodorant in the bathroom and then I went to class. However, I forgot to zip up my backpack. When I was in class, the deodorant fell out and the teacher saw the deodorant. She asked if it was scented and I said no. She then yelled at me saying that she was having an allergic reaction. But here's the thing, she definitely didn't look like it. Her breathing didn't change, no watery eyes, no stuffy nose, nothing. And she just taught the class like normal. I felt bad about it and I emailed her asking about what deodorant she didn't react to so I could buy it. But instead, I got a response saying that was inappropriate. And now a part of me thinks that she's just completely faking it. So would I be the jerk if I just continued wearing it? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, 100% that teacher's faking it. She's clearly lying since you've been wearing the same deodorant the entire school year. And only when she saw the stuff was she like, oh man, I'm having a reaction. And it's like, dude, you are so insane. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. And if I was in your shoes, I would continue wearing it no matter what, especially if there's no scent to be accounted for in your deodorant. Did I overreact for leaving my boyfriend at a restaurant after he told the waitress that I was just the salad girl? Because right now he's saying that I humiliated him, and at this point, I'm not sure if I made the wrong decision. Here's what's going on. So I've been dating my boyfriend for almost a year. For the most part, things have been okay, but he has a sarcastic sense of humor that sometimes makes me feel small. I'm pretty quiet and I don't eat meat, which is just a personal preference by the way, and I guess I can be a bit shy in social settings. Anyways, last weekend we went out to dinner with a few of his coworkers, and I'd never met them before and I was already nervous. When the waitress came to take our orders, everyone was getting steaks or burgers, and I just asked for a salad. That's when my boyfriend laughed and said, don't mind her, she's just the salad girl. She doesn't eat real food. After this, his coworkers laughed. One even said something like, better get used to rabbit food if you're staying with him. Now I laughed awkwardly, but I felt humiliated. I already get comments from my family about my eating habits, and the fact that he joined in front of strangers really hurt. When the waitress walked away, I told him quietly that what he said wasn't okay, but he just brushed it off and said that I was being sensitive and to not embarrass him in front of his friends. So I stood up, said, enjoy your real food, and then I left and I took the bus home. He texted me nonstop that night saying I overreacted, that I made him look bad, and that I embarrassed him. His friends apparently asked what was wrong with me. Now I'm second guessing myself. I didn't yell or cause a scene. I just left because I felt small and disrespected. And at this point, I don't know if I made the wrong decision. Okay, honestly, you didn't embarrass this guy because he literally embarrassed himself. Why would he call you out like that? Like he does know that you're his girlfriend, right? There's no good excuse for this. This guy's just a massive jerk. And he even did this in front of his new friends. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for. So if I was in your shoes and my significant other did that to me, I probably would walk out too, because that really is incredibly embarrassing. Am I the jerk for not agreeing to split the bill for a Mother's Day dinner after my sister dropped it on me all of a sudden that I was going to pay $175 towards a bill that she never informed me about before? Because right now I am super pissed off and I seriously am not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my mother texted my oldest sister and I that we will be going to a restaurant on Friday, so I agreed and made sure to free up my evening. Friday comes along and our party had 11 people in it with 2 families at the table, including my grandma, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousins. Near the end of the dinner, my sister stood up and went away somewhere, and when she came back, she had a receipt in her hand, so my mom asked if that's the bill she was holding. My sister announced that she went to pay and that me and her were treating the table today for Mother's Day. And you know what? I was shocked because we never discussed that. She then handed me the bill and asked me to e-transfer her half the total, which was about $175. Well, back at our place, I told my sister that I couldn't afford that with all the bills, and that I did not agree to split the bill beforehand. She then proceeded to say that I'm ungrateful for our mom, and that as the older children in the group, we need to foot the bill. For more context, since the end of last year, I no longer live with my parents. I am in my 20s and currently live with my oldest sister, mainly because she wanted to move out and couldn't afford paying the mortgage and bills by herself. So my parents made me move out with her, and at the time, I didn't realize how expensive that will be. My sister now has a 6-figure job, whereas I have a way lower income, and basically I'm living paycheck to paycheck. That is no excuse for me not to pay, but I wanted to point out our different financial realities. Well, I haven't paid her yet, but I'm honestly considering not doing it. And at this point, I don't know if this makes me the jerk, and I seriously am not sure what to do. Dude, there's no way I would ever pay that bill. If my sister pulled that on me in front of the entire family, well then guess what? She's gonna be embarrassed in front of the entire family, because that is super rude and you do not deserve that at all. My manager literally demanded that I follow the script exactly anytime a customer calls in. So I did just that, literally pissing off everybody in the process, resulting in their stupid policy getting reversed in just a month's time. Here's what went down. Okay, so I work in a call center for a regional bank, handling everything from balance inquiries to fraud alerts. The job isn't glamorous, but most of us were good at it because we knew how to actually talk to people and calm them down. One day, corporate decided we were going off message way too much. They rolled out a new script, and we were required to follow it word for word. No improvising, no adapting to the customer's tone or urgency. We just needed to read the script. We all knew this would go very badly. One-size-fits-all language doesn't work when someone's card just got stolen or their mortgage payment didn't go through. But management was adamant. If you deviate from the script, it's a write-up. So I just complied and I did it religiously. One day, a customer called, clearly panicked. Someone just charged $800 at Best Buy on my card and I'm at work. I didn't do it. Please cancel it now. Well, I took a deep breath and I replied exactly as the script instructed. I'm so sorry to hear that you're experiencing this inconvenience. I'd be happy to assist you with that today. Before we begin, may I ask how your day's been going so far? There was dead silence and then the customer said, seriously? So I continued. We strive to provide exceptional customer service with every call. Can I please get your 16-digit card number to better assist you? The guy then actually laughed and said, oh, I hope they're recording this call. And you know what? They were. And so were 3 others that week where I stuck to the script in these absurd situations. People locked out of online banking, someone whose check bounced, a woman crying because of a fraud lock on her account. Well, my supervisor pulled me into a room looking annoyed but also kind of sheepish. She said to me, we've had some feedback. You don't have to follow the script that strictly. But I responded innocently. I said, oh, I thought it was a write-up if we deviated. She then responded, just use your own judgment, okay? And then after that, the script was officially optional within a month. And I can tell you, after going through this for just a little bit, I probably enjoyed this process way too much. Oh man, I relate to this so much because anytime one of those automated messages, or when like the customer service agent is doing this crap, my blood starts to boil in a way that seriously is not healthy. So good for you for showing these people exactly why this would never work, because this is something that they absolutely need to get through their skulls. Am I the jerk for asking my in-laws not to bring their dog to our house when they come into town, as I find the entire situation incredibly frustrating? Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband and I had our first child a few years ago. His parents, who live several hours away, started coming to visit once every few months to see their grandchild. The first couple of times they came over, they would bring their dog with them called Rover. At first, this didn't bother me, but then I started noticing that Rover had some habits that I didn't resonate with. For example, he likes to lick people while everyone eats at the dinner table, and then he rubs his you-know-what on your feet. Eventually, I decided to speak to my husband about how this bothers me, and he agreed that we would bring it up to his parents. Well, all 4 of us sat down and had a conversation about it, and they reluctantly agreed not to bring Rover to our house anymore. Well, the next time they came over, I was on a business trip, so they immediately brought Rover over with them. I then overheard them talking on the Ring doorbell about how they refuse to follow my house rules because they're stupid. I then reached out to my husband to let him know this hurt my feelings, to which he encouraged me to speak with them about it directly. So I sat down with them and I explained how that made me feel. Well, they did not apologize and simply stated that Rover is very sweet, and I'm choosing a weird hill to die on. I ended up giving up because I just felt so defeated. Well, the next time they came to visit, Rover came along with them. I tried talking to my husband about it, but he shut down and became defensive and told me I was being overly difficult about it, so I just let it go. My in-laws are scheduled to come into town again this weekend, and when I asked about Rover, he confirmed that they will be bringing him with them. I feel bothered by this and I want to bring it up again, but I'm afraid that he will just shut me down again. So am I the jerk for asking and wanting them to find other arrangements for their dog when they come to our house? Because right now I'm really frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh man, this is so toxic. First of all, you really need to stick to your boundaries, otherwise they're gonna walk all over it. And that's exactly what the in-laws are doing. And the fact that your husband's not supporting you is so stupid in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for asking about this, because honestly, the way they're bringing their dog around is really weird. An entitled Karen refuses to pay me for the site I built for her, literally screwing me out of thousands of dollars, all because she wanted to keep all the money for herself. So I decided to get some revenge by pretending to be the hacker that took down her website very recently, resulting in her paying me what she owes me for the work I did for her website, as she assumed that I was the hacker that took down her site, despite the fact that I definitely wasn't. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is basically about a freelance revenge story that happened about 8 years ago, and it was one of the first times I was ghosted without paying paying. Now, for a bit of context, I created a landing page for this lady that would promote her elven symbol jewelry store. It was a bunch of esoteric BS, but I was young and trying to break into copywriting, so I took any deal that I could. We agreed on a pure performance deal. So I got nothing up front, but we settled on a 5% performance fee. Her WordPress store was really small, and I was aiming to get about $800 out of it. But honestly, at some level, I would have been happy to just do it for practice and for my portfolio. Well, long story short, I wrote the landing page and I built it inside of her WordPress site. She started running some Facebook ads on it, and I was shocked to see that it was actually converting. On day 1, she got $120. On day 2, $200. On day 3, she got $150. And on day 4, $360. And this kept going and going. And by the end of the month, that landing page brought in about $6,000 in revenue. And I honestly thought that I struck gold. $300 in royalty in the first month? Like, are you kidding me? I was going to make bank from like 2 days of work. Well, predictably, she disappeared the moment I mentioned first invoice. 3 months go by and I get nothing. No replies to emails and calls go unanswered. She's still running ads. I mean, I can see all the sales coming in because I still have access to her website. Then out of nowhere, I get a panic message. My site is down. Are you doing this? Please stop. Now, for the record, I had nothing to do with her store going down. Probably just her cheap hosting. But after being ghosted for months while she made thousands off of my work, I knew this could be my one and only shot at getting paid. So you know what? I just played along. But I had to be careful. I couldn't just admit in writing that I'm the hacker and threaten her to pay up. Like, what if she went to the police and showed them the messages? No, I had to make her think that I was, but not admit to anything at the same time. So I replied. I said to her, sorry, but I'm not going to pay you until you pay me what you owe me. Well, this turned out to be the perfect level of vague. I never said that I hacked her site. I never threatened to keep it down. And instead, I just looked really suspicious. She then immediately called me and asked me what I want. I told her I still have access to her website and Google Analytics. I can see what she made off the landing page and I want what we agreed on. 5% of sales from that landing page. Well, it ended up being just shy of $1,500. After that, she then said she'll take care of it. We got off the call and I sent her the final invoice. And right then she wired the money immediately. She then messaged me with a payment confirmation from her bank and asked me to enable her website. So in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, it worked. I was shaking when I typed back, but I replied by saying, I had nothing to do with your website crashing. You should talk to your hosting provider. After that, I never heard from her again, but I'm honestly just so glad that I ended up getting paid. Dude, I love this so much. This is like the best kind of revenge you ever want to get because this Karen deserved this. The second anybody like doesn't pay someone for their work on time, like that for me marks you as a bad person right then and there. Like across the board, you're a garbage human being if you don't pay people for their work. Whether that's building out a website or like, I don't know, lawn care or whatever it is. Just pay people what you promised them, like seriously. And you agreed to give basically the original poster some royalties, so you gotta do that. So seriously, good for the original poster for tricking them into paying you. Like that is a brilliant way to get your money back because chances are this Karen probably wasn't even paying for hosting or something like that. Because based on their history, I wouldn't be surprised if they were like skimping on all of that from the very beginning. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic supervisor says that if I'm even 5 minutes late to work, then I should not even bother showing up in the first place. So I decided to maliciously comply, eventually leading to this guy looking like a complete moron. Here's how it went down. Okay, I used to have this super chill supervisor who understood that traffic happens, life happens, as long as we get the work done. Then we got a new guy who was the corporate type and obsessed with punctuality culture. Well, the first week he calls me into his office. He says to me, "You've been 5 to 10 minutes late a few times. That won't fly anymore. If you're late again, don't even bother coming in at all." I then asked if we could talk about adjusting my shift slightly, as I work late most days anyway. He then cuts me off and says, "We have to maintain standards, no exceptions." So I thought to myself, okay then. Next Monday I hit traffic and the GPS says I'll be 12 minutes late. So I just didn't go in. I took the day and I sent an email to him. "I'm just following your guidance. Late again, so I won't be coming in." Well, I didn't get a reply. Fast forward and I did the same thing again on Thursday. It was the same deal with a light traffic delay and I decided to stay home. Human Resources finally emails me like, "Are you planning to return to work?" And I forwarded them his exact words with no edits. Suddenly, there's a clarification meeting, and apparently the policy was miscommunicated. I was then welcomed back and minor delays will now be handled with understanding. Because I guess at the end of the day, he didn't expect me to follow his instructions that well, which led to him looking like a complete moron. I love this so much because my God, I can't stand managers like this. They're idiotic, they're super obsessive, and they make everybody else's lives a complete nightmare. So good for you for sticking it to this guy in a way that he will truly never forget. An entitled customer mouths off at my assistant manager, treating him like garbage in a way that was truly unacceptable. So my assistant manager got revenge by humiliating them in a way that they are truly not expecting. Here's how it went down. So this was from many years ago when I was a retail salesperson in a jewelry store in a shopping mall. This really did happen, and it's one of my favorite memories. Our assistant manager, who we'll call Jerry for the sake of the story, sold a really fancy crystal set to a couple who was going to give it as a wedding gift. I was within earshot during most of the transaction, which took a long time and featured the husband being a jerk to Jerry the entire time. We're talking condescending, demanding, demeaning, pretty much the works. But Jerry was a total professional. He kept his cool and remained cheerful and obliging during all of the mistreatment he was receiving. At the end of the transaction, he asked them if they would like some complimentary gift wrapping. The customer agreed, and so Jerry took the box into the back room and did a spectacular wrapping job. He went all out with luxury ribbons, silver metallic textured paper, literally the works. So the customer left, Jerry smiled and then waved goodbye. When they were gone, he was still smiling, and I asked why he was so cheerful after that experience. Jerry said to me, "Oh, it's fine," and held up the price tag and smiled. The crystal set had cost around $150, which back in my day was about $500 in total. And while in the back room wrapping the gift, Jerry had removed the original price tag, but then stuck new ones on the bottom of each one, something like maybe $17 on each one, even going as low as $3. Then he wrapped them up all nice and pretty. He then said that the beauty of all of this is that they will never know, and then gave a satisfied laugh knowing that these people were about to look incredibly stupid. Oh man, I love this so much because you know for a fact they did not expect that the price is going to be on the bottom of it, let alone the wrong price, making them look incredibly cheap. Like the bride and groom eventually are going to be like, "Oh wow, look at these crystal glasses that we got. Wait a second, this is really cheap glass. What were they doing?" Whereas everybody else probably got them something like really fancy and worth their while. So seriously, good for Jerry. We need more Jerrys in the world, especially in the workforce, because customers like this absolutely deserve to get punished, especially if they're going to be condescending. Am I the jerk for leaving dinner with my parents early after they called my girlfriend disgusting for kissing me on the cheek? Because right now they're saying that I need to apologize for leaving early, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been a lurker here for a while, but I now have a situation that I need to know if I'm wrong about. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I've been dating my girlfriend, who I will call Ruby, for about 10 months now. She is 48 years old, and yes, I'm aware of our age gap. I'm a fully grown woman, I can make my own choices, and Ruby treats me really well. She's been the first in a long string of really awful exes to do so. She is honestly an absolute angel. Now, for some more context, my parents and I have never really been close, as they honestly just didn't really care about me as a kid. I was always being handed off to nannies and ignored when I tried to play with them. They would always leave me behind with said nannies when they went on business trips and vacations. And then when I got older, they would just leave me all alone. It was a terrible way to grow up, but I've moved on from it. I can't let my childhood define my entire life. And once I moved out, we rarely talk besides holidays and birthdays. Anyways, in the past couple of years, my parents have started reaching out more and trying to connect. I was a little weary at first, as I thought maybe they wanted something from me, but after feeling them out for a bit, I think they just feel bad for how they ignored me when I was young. I slowly started letting them into my life, and a few months ago, I told them about Ruby. They immediately jumped into telling me how I'm too young to be dating someone so old, and so on and so forth. But I shut that down immediately. I told them they don't get to say stuff like that to me ever. They can either support me after all the stuff they pulled, or they can go away. And you know what? That seemed to shut them up. Fast forward to last night, where me, Ruby, and my parents all had dinner together. It was their first time meeting her, and it was going smoothly up until Ruby gave me a peck on the lips before going to the bathroom. The second she was out of earshot, my mom just blurted out something like, "Oh, Ruby just absolutely disgusts us. She is disgusting." Now, I didn't say anything, but I was just so stunned as they both started to explain that they can't accept this relationship or some other BS like that. I mean, I barely remember. All I could hear was static. I was so pissed off. I flagged down our waitress, told my parents that we were leaving, and I paid the bill as we all sat in awkward silence. And it's like, I guess they didn't want to embarrass themselves in front of the waitress. I don't even know. By then, Ruby was back and she was totally confused. I explained everything in the cab ride home, and honestly, I started tearing up a bit. I was finally starting to think I actually had parents, but then they go and say awful stuff like that. Ruby was pretty shocked and comforted me as best as she could. Now, my parents have been calling me and texting me, scolding me for leaving like that, and saying that they just want me to date someone right for me. They even looped a couple aunts and uncles in, who never even really give a crap about me in the first place, and have them telling me to answer my parents and apologize. So with all that in mind, I really just need to know, am I the jerk in this situation for walking out? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset. Okay, yeah, there's no way you're at fault here. This is so unbelievably disgusting, the fact that your parents did this to you. Because honestly, your girlfriend didn't do anything wrong. She literally just kissed you on the cheek before she went to the bathroom. So no, you're not the jerk, because the way they're treating you is completely out of line. A group of entitled jerks decide to be way too loud at a graduation ceremony for my daughter. So me and my family decided to get some revenge on them by literally returning the favor and ruining their experience as well. Here's how we did it. So I was at a college graduation yesterday with 2 sons to watch our daughter graduate. There were 2 young women behind us in the bleachers, and they were talking nonstop and not quietly. I turned around and I asked them nicely if they could be quieter so we could actually hear the speakers, and this was before the actual announcement of names and degrees. And one of the women behind us said something like, "Oh, they're just talking for now. It's not even the graduation, so we can talk as much as we want to." Well, needless to say, they did not quiet down, and I believe they stepped it up just to annoy me. During their loud conversations, we learned the first name of their brother, who we will call Ray for the sake of the story, and with a quick glance at the program, we located the only graduate named Ray, as well as the name of the graduate to be announced before him. My sons were texting, including me, and they plotted their revenge, all silently via texting back and forth, especially once we learned they were going to record their brother's walk. One of the women behind us was readying her phone to record the announcement of her brother's name and his walk across the stage to shake hands with a couple of dignitaries. When they announced the person before Ray, all 3 of us stood up, waving our arms and screaming as loudly as we could. And you know what? We continued during that person's announcement and then during Ray's. She then replayed it on her phone, but all you could hear once we started yelling was our yells. No Ray announcement at all, nor did she capture video of him walking across the stage. We had blocked that out by standing and waving. Now, we learned this from her comments during a couple replays on her phone behind us, and some choice words along with it. Now, thankfully, my wife was seated in the front row of the stage and she recorded our daughter's walk, so these idiots had no chance to get even. Yeah, seriously, when you're at a graduation, there's no reason to act like that. Like, just be quiet and wait your turn. You're literally just trying to watch someone graduate. Like, this is a big deal. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want someone talking the entire time. So honestly, this level of revenge kind of makes sense to me, and I think I would have done the same thing, especially if the people behind me were being obnoxious like the people in this story. My manager changed an annoying policy that mostly affects me, so I decided to maliciously comply, effectively showing him how dumb it truly is. Here's how it went down. Okay, so this happened mid-2022. I was hired almost fully remotely at my current job as a systems engineer, and this was agreed upon by human resources and the hiring director. Part of my job is on-site data center support. For months, I didn't have to do anything because nothing really came up, but as time went on, I did more data center work, which is not a big deal because 2 of them are close to me by car. Fast forward to October of 2023, and due to client requirements, daily IDF and MDF checks were required again. It was split up amongst all the engineering teams, with me being the lucky one to having to do it on Mondays. My main coworker, who's now my team lead, was over an hour away because the train to his area was down, but with the express train and bus, I could get there in about an hour. During the meeting, the manager stated to me, "You don't have to stay in the office all day. This was approved by the director and you could just go in, do the checks, and leave when you want." So I think to myself, great. I would go in, sign into work while on the train and bus, do the checks and anything else I might need to do, and then go straight home. And this went on for well over a year. Well, a couple of months ago, my manager stated that if we go in, we have to stay in for the rest of the day. And he didn't even have the audacity to tell us. My manager lead had to tell us during a meeting, and he thought it was complete BS as well. I don't know the reasoning, but it's such a waste of time and worse for my work. But then I realized I could go in later in the day and then leave when I sign off for work at 3:30 p.m. Now I leave for the 12:30 p.m. train to get to the office by 2, because it's a 90-minute commute. I do the checks and anything else that might need to be done, and then I leave by 3:30. One afternoon, my manager calls me and I mentioned that I was on the train. He then asked me, "Okay, did you start late today?" And I responded by saying, "No, I'm just going to the office for the checks like every Monday." Well, he didn't respond, knowing that I am still technically listening to his stupid requirement. My team lead laughed when I told him that, because honestly, this policy was incredibly stupid. Okay, I've said it once and I'll say it again, I can't stand managers who make up policies that don't make any sense. And this story is a fantastic example of that. Like literally, they're just wasting the original poster's time. So good for you for maliciously complying in this story, because your manager really needed to have it illustrated that what they're expecting you to do is incredibly stupid. Am I the jerk for kicking a family out of our condominium pool just because they don't live here and they literally are not residents of our condominium? Because right now I kind of feel bad and I'm not sure if I made a big mistake. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was enjoying my coffee poolside at our condominium on a Sunday morning. A mother and her 2 kids arrived who were clearly not residents because they drove up with all of their pool stuff in their car and changed into their bathing suits in the bathroom. A resident, on the other hand, would just walk here, as the association isn't that big, and would have changed in their own unit. It's been almost 100 degrees for a week. The kids jumped in the pool and started splashing around, having a great time. And yeah, they were noisy, but they were just being kids. I started thinking about what if all the kids from the surrounding apartment buildings started using our pool. Well, it's at this moment I might be the jerk, because I pointed out the sign that said residents only and I then made them leave. Because at the end of the day, they weren't really harming anything. The kids were so disappointed that I made them leave that they started crying. It has been so hot that I'm sure being in the pool was a great relief. But if I'm being completely honest, we pay for the pool. Plus, if they got injured, they would sue the condo association. If word got out that anyone can swim in our pool, then anyone would. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because honestly, I feel like I made a mistake. So in my opinion, I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I don't think this is something you should ever try to police ever again. And instead, I would report this to the association in charge of that place. I totally get where you're coming from. It is residents only, and you don't want anybody showing up and swimming in the pool, especially if you've got skin in the game where you're like, look, I pay for it. This is something I literally put my money into to make sure it's maintained. I can understand that aspect of it, but I also think this is something someone else should handle. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking them out, but also this should never have to come from you ever again. An entitled Karen neighbor decided to leave a note on my car, even though I parked my car legally on the street in front of her house, as she claimed that I had no right to do so and that I was blocking traffic, even though I definitely wasn't. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I got a note on my car that said something absolutely ridiculous. It said the following: please consider when you have no intention of going out for so far 3 days. By parking like this, you make it incredibly difficult for people to turn around. Our elderly relatives visit me on the weekend, and they were unable to park outside of our house. Please be considerate as you don't even live down this road. So after getting this message, I went and I talked to the lady and I explained. I said to her that I lived around the corner on the walkway attached to the road, and that there was plenty of space for turning, at least 1.5 cars wide. I also told her I got sick and was in bed with a vomit virus for 2 days. I said that she has space on her driveway for 2 cars if she backs one up into the garage, but apparently none of that mattered to her. It's just too much to be parking on the public road in front of someone's houses on the weekend. Also, apparently it's my fault for choosing to live in a house on a walkway and no driveway. She didn't seem to like when I informed her that I didn't have much of a choice in what house my parents bought before I was born. I honestly just went to talk to her, assuming it was a case of some kind of misunderstanding. If she was polite to me, I would have offered to give her a way to contact me to move my car next time if I could. But entitled Karens like this think they own the public road, so instead, this entitled Karen gets absolutely nothing from me. Yeah, people like this are so weird. You can literally park wherever you want. It's a public road. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line, and honestly, I hope you park in front of her house some more, because you literally have every right to do so. My entitled sister hosted a beach trip for the entire family, but after I told her that she couldn't have my favorite swimsuit, she freaked out and left early, refusing to pay for a large portion of the bill, leaving the rest of us stuck having to pay off the balance. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened really recently. My sister, who we will call Jay, and her husband organized and fully sponsored a 2-day family beach trip as their treat before flying back to the United Kingdom. Day 1 was perfect. It was amazing. Everyone was vibing and super chill. There was great food and lots of laughs. It's the kind of day where you wish you could bottle it up, where everyone is enjoying the time together. But then day 2 came around. Jay woke up in a good mood, same as everybody else. And then a few hours in, all of us sisters decided to go swimming. Now, before the trip, Jay asked if she could borrow her favorite swimsuit of mine. I forgot to pack that one, but I did bring an extra and I offered it to her. And she said that was totally fine until she saw the new swimsuit I was wearing, and suddenly she wanted that one instead. Well, I told her no because she already had the extra suit that I bought for her, and she had been okay with it. I thought it was no big deal, so I went outside to take some pictures. Well, not long after, our older sister told me that Jay and her husband were suddenly leaving early. Now, what's the reason, you might be wondering? They said that they had to prepare their things for the United Kingdom trip, which was really weird because that definitely wasn't the plan. They even brought our brother and cousin with them since they all came in the same car, so it kind of messed up a lot for the rest of us. But here's the real kicker. They left us with a huge chunk of the resort bill unpaid, plus the car gas expenses that were originally covered by them. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, so much for our treat. Clearly that was not the case. So yeah, what started as a sweet farewell trip turned into a passive-aggressive exit, all because I wouldn't give up my swimsuit. And at the end of it, it ended with a surprise bill, which for me just proves once and for all that my sister is super entitled, because this behavior is completely uncalled for. Oh man, talk about a one-way trip to never trusting your sister ever again. Because if she could do this once, my god, she could absolutely do this again
again in a heartbeat. What in the world was she thinking, dude? She literally planned a 2-day trip with a family, didn't get what she wanted with one single swimsuit, and was like, okay, I'm gonna leave you with some bills to pay for. This is no longer my treat. I need to get ready for the United Kingdom. It's like, what are you talking about? That is absolutely crazy talk. Like, I know for a fact I would never trust them in any capacity ever again. She would get put on that secret list that pretty much all of us have, like, let's be honest. And it's a list of people where we're like, okay, these people cannot be trusted. You can't give them any information, and there's no way you can give them money. Because that's where the sister belongs. She belongs like right in the middle of that list because this is unbelievable behavior. She has betrayed the entire family, and that is honestly an understatement.
An entitled brand new hire at the restaurant I work at is insanely rude and refuses to take any direction. Things have gotten so bad that she literally just doesn't do her job sometimes, leaving me and the rest of my coworkers on the hook as we have to finish her job up in order to close the restaurant. And at this point, I'm exhausted putting up with her antics that I'm seriously now considering talking to the owner. Here's what's going on. Okay, I just really need to get this out because I'm raging right now. Basically, I've been working at this restaurant for a few years, and I'm working one of the busiest holidays of the year. Normally, I'm a server, but I was hosting and I was floor managing because we were short-staffed for the weekend, and that way I could kind of be a floater. I could be hosting, doing to-go orders, resetting tables, etc. Now, there were 2 servers on the floor, and one was a new hire who's been there for about 2 weeks, maybe. It gets insanely busy with the phones, the to-go orders, seating, and I'm updating the menus on the laptop all at the same time. Meanwhile, this girl is not paying attention to her tables and has multiple tables sitting there with no water and not being greeted for 10 plus minutes at a time. I turn around and she's standing there behind the bar just wiping menus slowly. Now, this is not important side work, especially during dinner service, nor is it necessary because I had plenty of clean menus. She even left one table outside without greeting them for 30 minutes, even though she had stepped outside twice and somehow had not talked to them. The entire night, me and the other server were taking care of her tables while I was also hosting and doing all the other things I mentioned. Additionally, the other server was on a double as well. The end of the night comes along and the new hire sits her butt down and is just doing roll-ups. So yeah, she's not helping break down the floor or anything, or even take in the outside furniture. Now, the server that's on a double wants to talk to me outside and smoke, and I said to her, okay, sure. Let's grab the broom though and also sweep the outside seating while we do that. We were outside for maybe 10 minutes max. We come back inside and the new hire says, can you guys like get a move on and hurry up and finish closing? Because I'm doing all these roll-ups and I want to leave and have a birthday party to go to. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's just not my problem. You should have taken today off then. I then said to her, well, we were outside sweeping, but all you've been doing is the roll-ups. And that's all you have to do, so once you're done, you can go. By the way, the roll-ups were almost done, even though there was still other closing duties to be done. So I thought that would be helpful to her leaving faster. She then starts talking back and telling me that I haven't done anything and acting like she's done so much today. I told her that I shouldn't even still be there because I was hosting, not serving. But because there was still closing stuff to do, I had to stay. She then tells me to leave. And now I'm like, girl, I have to do the money drop and do other shift lead things. To which she tells me, well, anyone can do that. At that point, I had to go to the kitchen because I thought I was going to fully flip out on her. No, not anyone can do that. You idiot. That's why I have to do it. And you don't know what you're talking about because you're new and you have no clue what you're saying. The other server told her to then clock out and go right then and there because the disrespect was just not tolerable. And she literally refused to leave when that was told to her. But it's like, wait a second, didn't you just want to rush out so badly? So now all of a sudden you won't leave? Anyway, in the end, she was just sitting there after doing the roll-ups, and I said to her, okay, you can now go for real. And she said to me, oh no, now my friends are running late, so I'm actually just chilling. And she sat there on her stupid phone and watched me while I swept the whole inside floor, which by the way is her side work and not mine. Now, I'm not trying to be harsh to her, and I dislike bickering with coworkers, and I'm not down with being rude to new hires or being annoying because they don't know things or anything like that. But what I can't stand is lazy, entitled, and rude people who come into an establishment thinking they know everything, especially one where we all have to help each other out. And they're just being awful and talking down to me when I'm busting my butt covering your tables all shift long and doing all of your side work. The best part of tonight though is I should have just cut the double server earlier, leaving the new hire to do closing duties alone. But she knew that she would be so awful about it that she said, no, someone's gotta close the restaurant down because she definitely won't do it. Now, I've tried to direct her and teach her how to do certain things by saying stuff like, hey, just letting you know I sat 2 people outside for you. Or I would say, just closing this table out for you. Can you please finish bussing their plates, please? And she would either just not do it or she's combative with me about things. Last week, her first week and second shift, she lost a check slip with the tip marked, and I asked her to please look at her apron or somewhere. She eventually told me that she threw it out on accident, but it was a cash tip. But it's like, why didn't you just tell me that in the beginning? So I tried to tell her, oh, it's okay, that's fine. And just so you know, even if it's a cash tip, we have to stab the CC slips so we know that it's not just a lost check, and we can avoid looking for it at the end of the night. I was very patient and very calm. No problems at all. I mean, this happens, you know? Well, she proceeds to pull me to the side a few minutes later and ask me, are we good? Do you have a problem with me? And when she did this, I was honestly flabbergasted. She then tells me I'm new and I'm just trying to learn. And I explained, yes, I'm trying to teach you. It seems that she just can't take any direction or criticism or anything well, and she's naturally a combative person. When I went to the owner about it previously, about her pulling me to the side and asking if she had a problem with me, she just said, no, she's just being funny. She's got a dry sense of humor. And I actually couldn't believe it. I told her there's no freaking way. That was not a joke and it wasn't funny. Now, at this point, I don't know if I should even bring it up this time to the owner or if I should just request to not be scheduled with her anymore and let the other shift leads deal with her instead, because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Dude, if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever want to work with someone like that. She's not doing her job, she's talking back, and literally only a few weeks into her job, she's trying to act like she knows how to do everything. Like, I don't know about you, but that would be super annoying, especially if I've worked there for several years. Like, I know how this place works. Why are you trying to act like you're gonna teach me how to do things? So for me, I absolutely would go to the owner. I would not think twice and be like, look, I do not want to deal with this lady. Either you need to do something about it or I'm gonna lose my mind, because this new hire's attitude is completely out of line, and she can either correct that or she has absolutely gotta go. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for moving out early after I learned that my horrible roommate is actually potentially terminally ill? Because right now I feel awful and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. For the last 6 months, I've endured living with what I thought was an incompetent, lazy individual. He would leave dishes in the dishwasher for weeks, pile up trash on the kitchen table, and keep his personal items all over common areas of the house. He also sleeps in the living room, even though he has a room, and blasts the TV until 4 in the morning on weekdays. He leaves his laundry in the washer for weeks, washing dishes with bleach and floor cleaner. And this is not even the worst of it. This is just a few things that I've experienced. Well, I recently learned after confronting my landlord yet again with a variety of issues that this roommate has high blood pressure, chronic heart disease, and end-stage kidney disease, and needs dialysis to live. While I was shocked and felt bad, especially because I ignore him completely, I'm a little upset that my landlord didn't disclose that he was basically in hospice care prior to me moving in. Overall, I'm starting to honestly understand his behavior more, and I have way more empathy. I think he should have done assisted living more than living with roommates, who, by the way, he is kind of dependent for care. Instead of staying, however, I'm in even more of a rush to move before my lease ends. I am a little freaked out by the whole thing, I must admit, mainly because for someone with a terminal illness, he doesn't eat well or take care of himself, and I'm scared to walk into the living room one day and he's just not even going to be breathing or something. Last night his breathing was so heavy, it was honestly scary. My landlord just got laid off and I could use the extra money, but I told him I'm moving out on the 1st of June anyways. I know this will leave my landlord with a financial burden, but I need to do what's best for me. My friend said I need more empathy, but I feel like prioritizing myself is more important. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I feel really bad. Now, before we go any further, the original poster actually went on to say that based on the comments of this story, they learned that this guy's condition is not terminal and that basically he's just not dying, he's just chronically sick, which is a really good thing because then that would take away any guilt I would have about moving out. And sure, I totally get it, he's sick all the time and maybe he can't really take care of himself, but if that's the case, then guess what? He shouldn't be living with a roommate and he shouldn't be expecting them to like pick up the slack. That's really annoying and I know for a fact I would not want to deal with that. So I think your original motivation is completely fine. If anything, you're trying to escape a roommate who clearly is really being lazy and they're making your life really hard. And that, in my opinion, is not a bad reason to move out, like not at all in the slightest. Am I the jerk for saying my roommate's parents cannot live with us for a month? Because right now this is ruining all of my plans and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I recently moved into a 3-bedroom apartment and there are 3 of us living there. When I was interviewing for this place, one of my roommates mentioned that her family visits, so they are around sometimes, and then said nothing else about it. It never occurred to me that she meant they stayed in the apartment instead of a hotel, and she never explicitly said that they stayed in the apartment, much less for 2 months out of the year. I had no idea about this until my other roommate informed me and told me that it had been going on for years, and it is quite quite uncomfortable with the mother and specifically the father staying here. It was vaguely mentioned to me in one offhand comment, but she was never told anything at all. When I found out, I went to the property manager to discuss the specifics of our lease and the guest policy as it is a violation, and I wanted to understand the terms. We then had a conversation in person where I said the terms of the lease were acceptable, namely that they could stay 14 nights, but nothing longer when she mentioned that her parents typically stay for a month at a time. She said that she would honor the terms of the lease and gave us dates, but now she is lying and changing them. Now I am subletting for the summer, so it has been known that I will leave the apartment and then return. Based on our most recent conversation, she would not give a straight answer and said that she was stretching out the time they would be spending spanning a month, and they would return to stay again a few weeks after that. Now the current roommate who is staying is also very upset, as the parents' visit will now span a month and a half, almost the entire summer. The other issue is that I'm having trouble finding someone to sublet my apartment because of these changes. I was willing to lose a few $100s to cover the half month that we were told at the beginning of the summer, but now that she's changed the dates, it will cost me at least a month or a month and a half's rent, which is now thousands of dollars. We tried to speak to her to come to some kind of solution, but she's completely refused. And the more that we discuss this, the more we are realizing that she was always planning on having them stay for longer after I left. My final word on the matter was that she has already violated the lease this term by having them stay for a month in the winter, and I don't want to evict her, but I will not lose money over this. They can come for the planned dates for 2 weeks, but no longer. The property managers are aware that this has been an ongoing issue, and they have offered to help. We have tried twice to have a conversation with her, threatening eviction being our last resort, but she clearly does not respect our space, our money, or the lease. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, I would absolutely escalate this dude. There's no way I'm gonna put up with this. This roommate's literally breaking the lease by allowing them to stay the entire summer basically. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live with someone else's parents for the summer. That sounds miserable and I would hate that. So no, you're not the jerk for saying that they can't have their parents over for that long, because at that point they might as well just start paying rent. I received $25,000 as a gift from my illegitimate grandfather that I can only use for large purchases. And right now I'm pissed off that every single penny isn't in my pocket so that I can use it as I please. And I'm wondering if this makes me the jerk, because right now I kind of feel bad. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I grew up in an upper middle class family. The way that my parents raised me was negative punishment. They would take away the thing that I valued the most to get the results that they wanted. When I was 12 years old, it was my Xbox. When I was 14, it was my free time during the summer. And when I was 16, it was my dad's car. It was a 1999 Subaru Outback, but it was my means of relative freedom. And you know what? Fair enough. I got my first job when I was 17 years old and immediately started to practice and learn how money works in capitalist America. I got very good and now live mostly on passive income. Yesterday, my mother told me that her biological grandfather, the one that she tracked down through those family tree gene testing sites, the one that slept with her mother while actively engaged to another woman, and the one that I didn't even meet until my early 20s, had decided that he has too much money and wants to give $25,000 to each of his grandchildren. But here's the catch. The money has to be used for a large purchase like a house or a new car. Well, moving forward to today, that $25,000 is supposedly going to me, but my parents have decided that it will go into an account in my name under my father's social, managed by his financial advisor, in a fund that I get no say in. I complained and said, can I at least pick the fund? And my mother said no, to which I sighed and put my head on the table, to which she said, you could be more grateful, you know. And my sister said, it's $25,000, just take it as it is. To which I said, but it's not my money like that. To which my mother seemed very disappointed and didn't say anything else. So I understand that it's 100% a first world problem, and I understand that $25,000 is a lot, but I've always craved freedom and autonomy. I hate gifts, especially from people that don't know anything about me. I don't want a gift like that because it feels soulless and completely in the control of my parents and not me. It makes me feel like a child, petulant as I may be, and I don't need $25,000 for a down payment on a house. I need the income on paper. So it's a gift that I don't need. I can't use it in my own way, and I cannot touch it when I want to do things that I believe would be of good use for that money, like traveling to see my illegitimate grandfather, or traveling to Eastern Europe with my friend to see the world. That to me, regardless of the fact that it's $25,000, doesn't feel like a gift. A gift shouldn't make you feel controlled like you're a child, right? So am I the jerk for not being more grateful? Mind you, the only reason I'm posting this is because my mother made me feel bad, and I want to appease her because I have mommy issues with this whole control stuff. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't see this as such a big deal. I don't think you're the jerk for not being more grateful, but like honestly, just use the money for a house or something, or even even use it for like a car. Like this obviously is something that you can use and not just something you can blow on like going to travel to Europe or something. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not being more grateful. I just think it's kind of annoying that you're trying to make this into something that it's not. Because at the end of the day, you have $25,000 waiting for you for a house or a car. And just because you can't get your hands on it now doesn't mean that it's not something you can use later on. An entitled old jerk interrupts my boyfriend's little sister's college graduation as he literally scoffs at every single speaker that walks up there that isn't white and also a man. And I'm honestly blown away by this guy's actions. Here's what happened. So I'm currently sitting in front of a very loudly talkative old man. I'm at my boyfriend's little sister's college graduation. This dude has been making comments at every speaker, except the old white man, of course, because yeah, that's the same demographic as him. One of the final student speakers came up and she had a heavy Arabic accent. And at this point, I'm sure you can see where this is going. As soon as she was at the speaker stand, he starts loudly saying, "Oh great, more yakking." Keep in mind, the biggest yacker in our entire section is him. She's giving a great speech and he keeps interjecting more than usual. Random little outbursts of disrespect. She starts talking about her struggle when she fled her home country in the Middle East for refuge here, and how she was so grateful to be graduating college when girls in her homeland can't even go to school. Well, this old man then actually scoffs quite loudly and says, "Who cares?" And it's like, bro, you better believe I whipped my head around at him and I said, "Are you serious right now?" And I did this with the nastiest look I could muster. He shut up finally for a few more speakers, even though he's still currently mumbling random crap because some of these old people in the audience just can't understand the respect of being quiet for at least an hour when it's not about you. I'm honestly so sick of this guy and I can't wait to get away from him. Oh man, I can't believe there's no like ushers or someone to be like, "Hey buddy, you gotta shut up or you gotta go." Because this is literally an event. What are you doing heckling the people talking? Like this guy's trying to be like, "Oh yeah, who cares about this lady who struggled in life?" And it's like, dude, apparently the school and everybody else, because everyone's listening intently and you're the only guy who, by the way, is acting super racist about it. So good for you for saying something because this guy is absolutely out of line. My psycho downstairs neighbor screams all the time, so I decided to get some petty revenge by returning the favor by blasting black metal down through the floor through my speaker. Here's how it went down. I've been living in a middle floor apartment, and for months I've been hearing screaming and swearing. Now this wouldn't be a problem if it was infrequent. We all have bad days, I totally get it. However, my building is a renovated factory building, so the floors and walls are practically soundproof. I've done my best to be a considerate, quiet neighbor. I work long hours and travel often for months at a time, so I only met the apartment next to mine a month ago. However, the neighbor has been at this very consistently, at least 3 times a week for the past couple of months, and I left a polite but anonymous note thinking it was upstairs after the screaming started at 6 in the morning after I had a shift that finished at 2 o'clock, and they wrote on the same note saying wrong flats. So the next time the screaming started, I went out into the communal courtyard and I realized it was downstairs. Well, you know what upstairs neighbors are really good at? I returned to my flat and began stomping around, and then I put my speaker to face the floor and played a quick burst of black metal. Well, the screaming stopped, and sure, he did scream again a couple of hours later, but I rinsed and repeated, and guess what? I've heard nothing since, and hopefully it stays this way for the foreseeable future. Dude, if there's one thing that I cannot stand about living in an apartment, it's literally dealing with noisy neighbors. Because I'm just like the original poster, I totally get it, some ordinary noise is normal, but when you're doing that crap past midnight, like, I'm sorry, but there's no excuse. Like at that point, just be quiet. Because if you respect me, then trust me, I will happily respect you. But I love the way the original poster handled this because these people absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my sister after she quite literally named her daughter after a fungal infection? Because right now she's saying that I'm overstepping the line by saying anything, and right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister and her husband have been struggling a lot with baby names. She was determined to find the single perfect name. Even by the time her baby shower nearly 5 weeks before the due date, she didn't seem any closer to picking something out than she was at the start of her pregnancy. Anyways, I knew she was struggling. So in addition to the $900 wooden crib on her list that I got her, I gave her a list of obviously joke baby names. We have a really close relationship, and it was in line with both of our senses of humor. She's a nurse and I'm a biology student, so all the names were medications, infections, unpleasant animals, etc. And they all sounded like lovely girl names out of context. Some of them were a little bit obscure, sure, but I included some obvious ones like Viagra and hernia for good measure. Well, 2 weeks later, she told me that she and her husband had finally settled on a name. And well, she decided on Malassezia. Yeah, the baby's name is Malassezia, one of the names on my joke list. Outside the immediate issues, it's also the name of a very common fungal infection, one that my sister and I are both genetically predisposed to, one that we've both had multiple times throughout our lives, and her daughter will almost certainly catch it at some point. I pointed it out to her and she said yes. She knew what it meant and she knew my list was intended to be a joke, but she just really liked the way it sounded. I don't think the husband knows what it means, and I think he'd reject it if he did. She says that it's so obscure that no one will ever think twice about it. Except, you know, when little baby Malasesia turns 14 years old, finds a weird spot on her neck, and goes on her phone to Google what it is. I told her that the name was completely unacceptable, and I was shocked that she chose it. I even suggested some similar names, like Mallory or Azalea or Anastasia. That would be way more acceptable, but she literally wouldn't hear it. She said that since I'm not one of the parents, I have no business telling her what she can and cannot name her child, and that apparently I'm stepping way out of line. I think it's pregnancy hormones, and she'll regret the decision very soon after her daughter is born. So am I the jerk for blowing up on my sister about this? Because right now I feel incredibly upset and I don't know what to do. Dude, your sister's really dumb. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, that is a terrible name. Dude, don't name your kid a fungal infection. What is going on right now? That's a terrible idea. They would be better off with one of the classic names that kids definitely should not be named, that typically rhyme with some kind of curse word. Like, that would be better for the kid than being named a fungal infection. They're gonna learn basic biology one day and be like, wait a second, what did my parents do to me? So no, you're not the jerk for blowing up your sister, because if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the same thing. My entitled coworker literally steals all of the office supplies, taking it all for herself, all because she's worked there for 15 years. But as a result of her thievery, they forced her to start working from home indefinitely, ensuring that she would never be able to steal any office supplies ever again. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this marketing firm for about 3 years now, and for the most part, my colleagues are great. Well, everybody except for someone I will call Diane. Diane sits 3 cubicles down from me and has worked here for 15 years. She constantly reminds everyone of her seniority and acts like it entitles her to special treatment. But what's been driving me absolutely insane lately is her bizarre obsession with office supplies. Last Tuesday, I needed a stapler for an important client presentation. Mine had mysteriously disappeared from my desk the week before, which is already super suspicious. So I walked over to the supply cabinet and it was empty, not a single stapler in sight, even though we had just had a supply delivery the previous day. I asked around and someone we will call Madison from accounting mentioned that she had seen Diane carrying a box to her car during lunch. Curious, I casually strolled by Diane's cubicle later that afternoon, and what I saw stopped me in my tracks. Behind her desk, partially hidden by a filing cabinet, was a mountain of office supplies. I'm talking at least 6 staplers, dozens of notebooks, countless pens, and even 3 of the new wireless mice that IT had been saying were backordered when I requested one last month. The next morning, I discreetly mentioned to our office manager, who we will call Jen, that I couldn't find any staplers. She sighed deeply and said, "Let me guess, you need other supplies too?" When I nodded, she lowered her voice and said, "This happens every quarter. Diane takes everything and claims she needs backups for her important projects. I've ordered replacements, but they won't arrive until next week." But yesterday, things finally came to a head. I was printing materials for a client meeting when the printer displayed toner low. I went to grab a replacement cartridge, but of course there were none, and my meeting was in 30 minutes. Desperate, I walked to Diane's cubicle and I politely asked if she might have an extra toner cartridge, and she literally looked at me like I'd asked for her firstborn child. She snapped at me and said, "Why would I have printer toner at my desk? That's ridiculous." Just then her phone rang. As she turned to answer it, her chair bumped into the tote bag behind her desk, and I clearly saw 3 toner cartridges inside. Now at this point I was fuming, but I kept my cool. After her call, I simply said, "Diane, I can see the toner cartridges in your bag. The entire office needs supplies to do their jobs, not just you." Well, when I said that, her face turned bright red. "I've been here for 15 years. I need these supplies for my special projects. You newcomers don't understand how things work here." By this point, several colleagues had stopped to watch the commotion. Jen from office management appeared, took one look at Diane's hoard, and said firmly, "Diane, we've talked about this. Please return the supplies to the cabinet immediately." Diane huffed dramatically, muttering about ungrateful coworkers and no respect for seniority, as she reluctantly handed over 1 toner cartridge. Later that afternoon, an email went out from Human Resources about a new supply checkout system being implemented, and this was effective immediately. I also noticed the janitor installing a lock on the supply cabinet. Now, the best part about it is that this morning, I arrived to find Diane's cubicle completely empty, with a small note from our manager saying that she would be working from home indefinitely. The supply cabinet is now fully stocked, and mysteriously, everyone's missing items have reappeared, which really goes to show you that some people's entitlement truly knows no bounds. Oh my gosh, this is so obnoxious. I would never want to work with someone like that, but also I have definitely worked with some Dianes in my life. They take all the supplies and they try to be like, "No, I need it more than you do. I've worked here longer. And it's like, dude, I just need a pen. I literally need one pen so I can do my job. Can you please give over one pen from the office? Why do the Dianes of the world try to act like, oh yeah, all this is mine because I've been here longer? That is so annoying, and honestly, I would hate to be back in that situation because when I dealt with my Diane, it was an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to sign my parents' house, which is under my name, over to my wife if I were to pass away? Because right now, I feel like there's some sketchy things going on, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, for a bit of backstory, in 2008, my parents lost most of their money, and it eventually got to the point where we were no longer able to afford their house. My dad is quite a bit older than my mom, and his biggest worry is that he is not able to leave her enough money so that she can live and pay for a home or even rent without having to financially rely on me and my sister. So this is the plan that we came up with. We found a house with a large lot that we bought under my name. My parents put down a significant amount of their savings for the down payment for the property and to build a detached accessory dwelling unit for them to live in. I lived in the main house for a while, and my parents lived in the attachment. The agreement was once I moved out, we would rent out the main house. I would be responsible for the main house, the maintenance, the repairs, etc., and my parents are responsible for the attachment. We would split any property taxes not covered by the rental of the other property. Now, I live in an expensive area, so my parents will have a place to live for the rest of their lives with no stress about becoming homeless. And I end up with a great investment property that I already have quite a bit of equity in. I have the house in a trust. In the event of my untimely death, the ownership of the house will transfer to my parents and then transfer to my partner and my offsprings once they pass away. Well, my wife wants to change the trust to have the deed of the property go to her instead of my parents. She says she will of course let them live there, but wants control of the property if I pass away. Now, I feel really uncomfortable signing over the house my parents paid for over to her. Even though it's in my name and I'm spending some money on property taxes and maintenance, I consider it their house since they have paid for everything. Part of the reason I feel uncomfortable is because when we were updating our life insurance policies once we got married, she made sure I removed my parents as beneficiaries and added her as 100% beneficiary, but then refused to add me as the same thing for her policy and had 100% of it going to her sister. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to sign the house over to her? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I kind of think that yeah, you would be the jerk if you did sign it over, because this house really was funded by your parents. Like in my opinion, they have the most money in this, so like why would you not give it over to them first? And for me, it's also a big red flag that she didn't sign you up as like her life insurance person or whatever, because that is really weird. Like you guys are married after all, right? So no, I don't think you're the jerk here, because if I was in your shoes, I would probably be doing the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my boss's kids eat my food? Because after their mom blew up at me, I feel like I'm literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female, and in February, I arrived in the United States as an au pair. If you don't know how the program works, basically you're hired as a nanny, but you're not paid a lot for it, maybe $196 a week, because the family gives you a place to stay and food in their house, and they also pay for your studies. It was the only way that I could afford to have the exchange experience, and I really wanted to take this chance, so I came along. The two kids I take care of are great. We talk a lot, and I already learned so much from them. The problem though that I have is with their parents. Since I arrived, they told me that I'm only allowed to eat the items from one cabinet and nothing else. They will only replenish it once a month, and they have cameras and will see if I try anything. I don't know if this is true, but I wouldn't steal anyways. In my cabinet, there are just tortillas, a few canned vegetables, beans, and mac and cheese boxes. No snacks or drinks or cheese or any meat like chicken. There's literally nothing like that. I talked with my agency here, and they told me that the family is allowed to do that as long as they give me food, and I can try to match with another family and wait for the process or go back home. And since I didn't want to give up, I decided to stay. But the food thing was really getting to me, so I started to use the money to put things in my cabinet. But the problem is that they are super healthy, and they don't let their kids eat cookies or chips or beef jerky or anything like that. Now, I wasn't trying to eat in front of the kids on purpose, but I spend most of my day with them when they aren't in their classes, and I get hungry, so I eat in front of them. And eventually, they've started to ask me to eat too. My money doesn't get me very far, and my parents have no way of helping me. And these snacks can last for days when I pace myself. So I just told them that they would need to ask their parents for snacks because I don't have a lot to share. Well, when they did ask their mom blew up at me in front of them, telling me that I had the audacity of denying her kids food inside of her home. That apparently if I ate in front of them, I had to share. care, and that I couldn't bring this kind of junk into her home. I couldn't really say anything in fear of her just dumping me on the street, but I told her that I didn't have enough money to buy an amount that I could share with her kids, or buy something that's healthier, and that I would really like to share mine if they would share theirs. And I meant the food the family eats. I don't ask the kids for their snack food or anything like that. She said I was lucky she really needed a nanny, and then that was that. I told my parents about it, and they think that she's wrong. But also, I'm in the wrong for how I dealt with it, and for taking it out on the kids when it's not their fault. My other friends in my program also think that I'm the jerk for denying food to the little kids. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? Because I seriously am not sure what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you right now. I just don't think this is a good living environment in the slightest. I know you're like trying to stick it out and be like, okay, maybe I can make this work, but like seriously, this just doesn't seem like a good place to live at all. If I was in this kind of program and they were even like hinting at the fact that I might be kicked out on the street, you know, in a country that I don't really know anything about, then my God, I would be getting out of there so fast, like it's not even funny. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not giving up your snacks, but also I would definitely start hiding food in your room and only eat it in there or something like that, especially if you can't get out of there sooner than later, because these people sound like they really suck. Today, I was chewed out at work for over 30 minutes, all because of some files that were sent to me by somebody else that apparently I wasn't supposed to have. So I decided to maliciously comply with these people by scaring them in such a way that would make them backpedal away from me altogether. Here's what went down. Okay, so I work as an engineer for a company that assigns me to various client projects. For one such assignment, I was added to a project that wouldn't start for a few weeks. So in the meantime, I stayed focused on other outgoing work. A few days before the project was due to begin, the external project lead sent me a zip file containing technical documentations, namely diagrams, requirements, and other materials relevant to the upcoming project. I skimmed through it briefly and then I moved on with my day, and it really was nothing unusual that I would spot. A couple days later, I got an email from the external company's scheduling manager saying that a document had been sent to me which apparently contained some confidential company information, and they were asking me to delete the email. And I just thought to myself, okay, that's fine. No file name, no explanation, just a vague please delete it. So I shrugged and I deleted the zip file and replied asking if they could resend it without the problematic part. And then I just forgot all about it. Well, that is until I got a call from the most condescending, passive-aggressive person I've ever dealt with in my life, namely the scheduling manager from the client side. She went on a 30-minute tirade about how the previous project lead never should have sent me that document, how serious the situation was, and most memorably, how she couldn't trust that I had actually deleted it. She said, "I just can't take your word for it. I'm not just going to trust you because you say so." And when she said this, at that point, I thought to myself, okay, I'm done with you. If you're going to act like I've just been handed the nuclear launch codes, then I will treat it as such. I responded by saying, "You're absolutely right. I'll contact our security operations team and report a formal security incident. They can coordinate with you, and together we can do a full scrub of all relevant mail servers to ensure the document is completely gone. It's really the only way to be certain." Well, when I said that, suddenly her entire tone changed. "Oh, no, that won't be necessary. It's fine. I believe you." She practically stumbled over herself trying to shut it down because, as she knows, escalating this to both companies' scrubbing teams would have turned into a bureaucratic nightmare, incident reports, compliance reviews, and probably someone getting thrown under the bus. I then politely reiterated that I really don't mind escalating if it would give her any kind of peace of mind, but she very quickly decided that she had enough peace already, and we ended the call and life moved on. So truly, if you act like I've compromised national security, don't be shocked when I offer to treat it like a national security incident, because at that point, you're just asking for trouble. Oh man, I love people like this at work because they're so easy to rile up. Like seriously, they suck at their job. They frame everything as the end of the world, and the second you reciprocate that and you're like, oh my gosh, you're right, that's the second they backpedal and they're like, oh wait, never mind, I wasn't that serious. It's like, dude, you most definitely were. You just chewed me out for 30 minutes about, oh, I don't believe you if you actually deleted it. Like at that point, I would have taken her word for it and been like, okay, I'll take care of it, you got it, and then push this forward to something that she really didn't want. So I just love the way she backpedaled in this scenario, because you know for a fact that she was regretting her decisions almost immediately. An entitled Karen loses her mind at our fast food drive-thru after she finds out that we have to charge her for every mayonnaise packet that she was asking for, which is just one of the many things that I've seen people freak out about while I've worked in fast food. Here's what went down. Okay, when I was in high school, I worked at a very popular fast food restaurant. Now, I don't care what anyone else says about fast food, it is not an easy job. Franchise owners and management made it very clear that we were easily replaceable. Customers often lost their minds on us over things that were completely out of our control. While I felt like a baller making $10 an hour, looking back, I have no idea how the adults that worked with me were surviving on that that kind of paycheck. Shift managers made an extra 50 cents an hour, which to me would not make it worth it. But anyways, my favorite person to work with was a woman who we will call Cindy. She had a pretty hard life, and I was always amazed by how kind she was to everyone, despite how badly she was treated. Cindy took a lot of pride in her work, just an all-around good person. Now, I was in the kitchen, and Cindy was taking orders on the drive-thru, and a woman who is the Karen of the story ordered a couple of chicken sandwiches and was already being nasty over the intercom. When she got to the window, she asked Cindy for some mayonnaise packets, and Cindy explained that there was a 20-cent charge for each packet, which, by the way, none of us wanted to charge anyone for packets, but they were counted, so giving away free mayonnaise wouldn't be worth losing our jobs. The Karen then threw a tantrum and started berating Cindy, then demanded that we take back the sandwiches and put extra mayo on them so she wouldn't have to pay any extra. And you know what? I was absolutely delighted, because I slathered at least an inch of mayonnaise on each side of those stupid chicken burgers. It's honestly just so sad that I didn't get a chance to watch her bite into it, because that is simply way too much mayonnaise for anybody's sandwich. Man, I 100% agree with the original poster here, because fast food sounds miserable. I've never personally worked in like a fast food restaurant before. I've always done like sit-down restaurants and been a server or like a busboy, so I can only imagine the things that you go through in the fast food industry, because like I've heard stories and they are all like terrifying. Like it's proof right then and there that customers truly are insane. They don't know what they want and they're irrational about it every single time. And the Karen in the story absolutely fits the bill. My entitled rich friend tries to make her way back into my life in the same way she tried to interject herself into my friend who ended up passing away. But I decide to shut it down before it even starts, because this woman is literally so insufferable. Here's what went down. Okay, so I have a very small ranch in California. I used to own a brush clearing business using goats. I haven't done that in years, but I still have 2 elderly mini goats. Yesterday, I got an email from a friend I've known since high school. We're both older now, and she lives overseas and also has a massive house in Malibu with a lot of land. She comes from a family with a known name that was one of the wealthiest in California. She inherited millions of dollars, and she has never for a minute lived without. The email let me know that she was in town to deal with her Malibu house as her land was damaged by our recent fires. She then asked if I could bring my goats over to munch on the brush on her land. Now, I haven't heard from her in over a year. No talk of pay, no explanation. In fact, the email was written as though she was doing me a friendly favor, and that it would be no big deal for me to haul 2 goats over to her place, spend a few days overseeing them eating, hauling them back and forth at night, you know, as a favor for free. I then explained that my goats were old, and that I didn't really do that anymore, that the work involved with doing something like this was pretty extensive. Well, no apologies were forthcoming. Instead, she was pissed off and wanted to know if I knew anyone else who would do that for her, and I'm willing to bet she's looking to have it done for free. Well, I told her that I didn't know anyone with goats. Now, for the record, I do, but there's no way I'm gonna subject them to this entitled woman. She abruptly said thanks, and that was it. She didn't say, oh, let's get together, I'm in town, or even, oh, it would be nice to see you again. All she said was, just let me use your goats for free, why won't you do that for me? Now, this same woman years ago descended on a mutual close friend who was passing away. She insisted on staying at the dying friend's house, taking up all of the woman and her family's time, energy, and resources, to the point that she had to be asked to leave because she was imposing so much. At that time, I had to cancel my long-planned and paid-for trip to see my very close friend, all before she died, because this woman drained all of their energy. So my best friend died without seeing me because of this woman and her entitlement. At the funeral, only my dead friend's family were supposed to speak, but the Malibu woman had written a 3-page speech that she really thought she was going to give, because she considers herself family. When she got up and tried to head to the front of the church to speak, my dead friend's brother finally had enough. He stood up, grabbed this woman by the arm, and forcefully dragged her back to her seat. I mean, he was furious. Well, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, but the sheer entitlement of some people who were clearly born into money never fails to shock me. Oh man, I cannot stand people who act like this. They literally only pop up when they need something. Otherwise, they are literally just a ghost. They just don't even show up anywhere. They're not there for you if you need them. They're not there to, like, I don't know, pick you up when you're down. They are just a straight up leech through and through. And that is so disrespectful in my opinion. Like, honestly, I just hate that so much. So good for you for not recommending this person to anybody that you do know, because this behavior is absolutely unacceptable. I'm now finally about to move out at the age of 28, and my mom is not taking this well, as she is clearly hurt and disturbed by this, as she is now giving me other options in some kind of desperate attempt to make me stay close to her. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm 28 years old, and I'm about to sign a lease with my fiance. I've always lived with my parents except for when I went to university, but even then, most weekends I would be back home, as it was only a 50-minute bus ride. Now, my parents, especially my mom, are super protective. I am an only child, and I never really got the freedom I deserved. They've always wanted control over me, like where I work, what I do, and where I go, etc. And my mom is super worried about my well-being. She doesn't like that I have to travel to work sometimes, long distances, and all this other stuff. She had this idea in her mind that was ideal, where I move in with them with my wife and have a family at their place. But surprise, surprise, we don't want that. I love my parents, but I also need my own space. I need my own life, and I need to learn things. When I told them yesterday about our plan of moving out, she immediately started tearing up, her voice getting cracky, and she stopped talking to me the rest of the night. She was clearly upset, although she didn't protest against it. They also gave us alternative options, like moving into their house, and they would move into a smaller place nearby my dad's work, and again, they just wanted control over what we would do. She's acting very much like a stranger now. She's acting like I want to move out because I hate her. I mean, she's clearly hurt. I'm not sure how to approach this situation now, and I'm scared that she will make comments that may lead to arguments. It is incredibly awkward to approach her. She's not ready for me to move on and almost makes me feel guilty for doing so. Like I said, they've always been controlling. The typical guilt trip you might expect. I have a good job, I'm financially stable now, but she doesn't see this, and instead wants me to remain in her nest. So how do I approach this situation? Because right now I'm honestly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, you're 28 years old. The fact that your mom wants you to live there with your family, like that is completely out of the question. And I don't blame you for being like, no, that's not gonna happen, we're moving out. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would just embrace the fact that she's probably gonna say something. She's gonna find some unhinged comment to throw my way just to get under my skin, to then instigate an argument and then justify why you're leaving. And I totally understand where you're coming from. It sounds like your mom is super controlling, and that is the worst thing on planet Earth. Her care becomes like this obsession where it's like, okay, I need to live my own life. I've got my own job, I've got a fiance, I'm 28 years old, like it's time for me to move out. And truly, if your living circumstances were different, where like you needed the help or something like that, then sure, stay with your parents. But it seems like that is not what's going on here, so yeah, it's time for her to move on. But regardless, that really is something that she's gonna have to deal with, because clearly you know what you want, and that clearly does not involve living right next to your parents. My rich millionaire friend literally dined and dashed in the middle of our lunch date, leaving me and my girlfriend with a bill that we literally could not pay for. And I am seriously pissed off at the way they ditched us right when we needed them the most. Here's what happened. So I've grown up with very little spending money, so this was a really strange situation for me. My girlfriend at the time was best friends with this girl who was the daughter of the largest newspaper company in my area. So to say that he was rich is an understatement. He had a beachfront property right in the heart of Cocoa Beach, and her mansion is where we met her to go out for this girl's birthday lunch. I wanted my girlfriend to have a good date still, so I was very clear. I was only paying for my girlfriend and myself before we made plans even. Well, when we get our bills all separated like we talked about, everything was going great. We were laughing, talking about plans afterwards, going back to the girl's house for a pool party, etc. But this is when she says they left their wallets in the car and would be right back. Well, 30 minutes later and they're nowhere to be found. It's just me and my girl sitting and waiting. I paid my tab, a pizza and 2 drinks, like maybe $35, and including the tip, I spent about $50. I only had about $100 to start, and I figured that's plenty for a lunch date. Well, the other two ordered 2 appetizers that they didn't share, each costing about $15. They also had 2 steak entrees at $50, and they had drinks. So their tab alone was closer to like $100 after taxes. So we sat another few minutes trying to call, as the waiter gently asked us to get up and sit at the bar, since obviously they wouldn't let us leave until the bill was paid. I only had $50 cash with no credit cards or debits, and for a long time I was a cash-only person. In fact, my girlfriend didn't even bring any cash either. I talked with the waiter and he lets my girlfriend walk back to the car to see what's taking them so long, and it's then that we found out that they left us and they're the ones that drove us. She then comes back and is like, yeah, they left and they're not answering their phones. I then had to call a buddy of mine to cover the bill and give us a ride back to get my truck from their mansion. And I'm lucky I had a good friend, and honestly they came in clutch. And this friend was really pissed off. After he dropped me off, he did donuts in their gravel parking lot, throwing rocks onto multiple different high-end vehicles before speeding off. So yeah, that's how I got left on hold for a bill for some stuck-up entitled millionaire, which is something I won't forget anytime soon. Dude, if you do not like blast these people on social media in some kind of way, then I just don't think you're living life the way you should. Because this kind of behavior, especially from someone who can afford to like pay for their lunch, is absolutely unacceptable. The moment that happened, I would have been like, okay, let's jump on Instagram, let's jump on Facebook, let's go to every major platform and be like, oh look, my millionaire friends decided to dine and dash at my expense. Like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I would not only stop being their friend, but I would go on a parade of ruining their reputation. I would be screaming this from the freaking rooftops, bro. There's no way you're gonna do that to me and get away with it. So yeah, let this be a lesson learned that those people absolutely suck, and I really hope you never deal with them ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for ignoring my ex-best friend who's offering me a job again, even though he fired me 4 months earlier for having too much dandruff in my hair? Because right now I feel like I should go back, but I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so about 4 months ago, I recently lost my job, and I've been looking for a little while, but I've been working on the side until I get back on my feet. Well, my friend opened his gym about a year ago, so naturally he offered me a position working the front desk and at the smoothie bar. Everything was going great for about a month until he slowly started giving me less and less shifts. When I confronted him about it, he straight up just told me that I didn't meet the hygiene requirements for the job, and the customers were uncomfortable with me handling their food. I was so confused because I shower at least once a day, and I like to think that I take care of my health. So I challenged his assertion. He then proceeded to raise his voice at me. He said to me, "When you walk around, it's like it's snowing," and then some more stuff along those lines. "I've never seen anyone with as much dandruff as you." And I will have to admit that my scalp is a little bit dry, but he had to be exaggerating, right? Well, I then started raising my voice, and I told him if I was such a bad employee, why don't I just do you a favor and not come in for my shift tomorrow? And then he told me to just go home now and never come back again. So that's what I did. Like I said, this was all about 4 months ago, and yesterday I saw him at a bar with another one of our mutual friends, and some other life stuff in combination with this really motivated me to get myself together. So when I saw him, he started going off about how good I looked and how I looked so much healthier now. Well, all I did was lose a few pounds and use a product to fix my hair, but he was acting like I wasn't the same person that he fired. Right away, he started going on and on about how hard it is to find good employees and how one of his employees recently stole from him, so he had to fire them. This went on for about 5 minutes, and you know what? I just sat there waiting for him to finish yapping. Eventually he did, but not before telling me that firing me was the worst mistake he ever made and asking if I would be open to coming back to work. I then told him I would think about it, but I don't really want to do this, and then again, he did offer me a job in my time of need. So would I be the jerk if I ignored him and didn't take him back up on this job? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, there's no way I would ever work for someone like that ever again. The second someone's like, "Oh, you're fired because you have dandruff." Like seriously, that's really dumb, but also like, dude, that might be like a medical thing going on. And also, I guarantee you that no other customers are like, "Oh man, I can't be around that guy. He has too much dandruff." If anything, it was your best friend like projecting that and being like, "Yeah, we've had a lot of complaints from customers." But it's like, no, you haven't. You're lying. No one in their right mind would be looking out for that and be like, "Oh my God, he has so much dandruff." So no, you wouldn't be the jerk for ignoring him because my God, you can find a better job than that. You do not need that kind of energy in your life, and honestly, I think it would be a big mistake to even pretend to go back. My entitled boss literally humiliates herself at the hotel that we're staying at, proving to me once and for all that she truly is an entitled Karen, and I'm seriously glad that I don't work with her any longer. Here's what happened. So I was traveling with my boss to a conference held at a hotel in Las Vegas. Before the first meeting of the day, we stopped at a little cafe in the hotel complex for breakfast. I had a bagel and she had a croissant and a fruit salad. She only ate about half the fruit salad and said that she didn't want to waste the rest of it, so she was going to the counter of the cafe to ask them to write her name on it and put it in the fridge for her to pick up later on. I then said to her, "Well, my room has a little fridge, doesn't yours? If not, I can keep it in my fridge if you want me to." She then said to me, "No, I don't feel like going all the way back up to my room. I'll just have them save it for me." I then argued that food safety laws don't allow them to take food back once it's served, but she told me that doesn't apply to situations like this. She then said, "Well, like I said, I'm gonna have them write my name on the container." Well, the teenage counter girl told her what I said and that she couldn't really take the food back for liability purposes. My boss then insisted on speaking to the manager, who was busy at the moment. My boss raised her voice and said, "Go get him now. We are going to be late to our meeting." And at this point, I saw the wheels turning in the counter person's head, because if I was in her shoes, I'll just say okay and throw the fruit salad away, because in my mind, I'm not going to be on shift here when she comes back later this afternoon. So the girl smiled and said, "Okay, sure, what can it hurt?" and carefully wrote my boss's name on the lid in black marker. My boss then sauntered away victoriously and said to me, "See, people are happy to do things if you just ask. You're so timid. This is why you aren't more successful." We met up for dinner later on and I asked her, "Did you remember to pick up your fruit salad?" Well, I come to find out that she did, but it was all different people working then, on, and they didn't know what she was talking about, and apparently her fruit salad had been thrown away. I said to her, "Oh, that's too bad. The manager probably made them toss it out. Sorry, I know you wanted to eat the rest of it." She then replied by saying, "Oh, it's okay. I made them make a whole new one for free since they threw mine away." Now, this is the same boss that also gave me a copy of The Fountainhead because she thought it might help me out. She also quit that job by leaving for lunch one day and never came back. In fact, she made her husband call the company weeks later and confirmed that she had quit, which is after all of their attempts to reach her were unsuccessful. She had worked there for 10 years, and honestly, I do not miss her in the slightest. Dude, entitled people like this are so frustrating because seriously, just leave the worker alone and put this in your room. Like, that's what the mini fridge is for, in your room itself. Why would you put them in a weird situation where they're like, okay, whose mystery fruit salad is this? And who's Karen? Like, we don't know this lady. And while it sucks that she still got what she wanted, in the end, I feel like you're the one that really came out on top, because either way, you proved your point. Am I the jerk for not helping my friend out financially anymore simply because she stayed with her awful partner? Because right now, I'm incredibly pissed off and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, this all takes place between 2018 and 2023. I'm a 28-year-old male and I've been friends with a girl, let's call her Jasmine, since about 2018. I was 21 years old at the time and she was 17. We actually met through my dad when I went with him to his TAFE course, which is the Australian equivalent of community college in the United States. We met one of the days I went with my dad and we got along really well. We found out we had a lot in common, and just after a few days of hanging out, she started to feel like a little sister to me. Even after I went back to my mom's place, we made sure to keep in touch. I was meant to visit my dad again in 2020, but COVID hit, and I didn't get to see him or Jasmine again until April of 2021. While I was there, I met her boyfriend at the time, who we will call Josh for the sake of the story. He seemed like a really nice guy, but after I flew back home, Jasmine called me and told me that she was pregnant. Both she and Josh were excited, and I was happy for her. 9 months later, in January of 2022, she gave birth to her baby, who she called Leo. But the excitement didn't last long. Just a few days later, she called me crying. She said that Josh had left her, accusing her of cheating and saying the baby wasn't his. But she got a DNA test that proved Leo was his, but he claimed the test had been tampered with and still believes that Leo wasn't his. As far as I know, as we don't really talk anymore, he still hadn't been a part of Leo's life. In May of 2022, she started dating a new guy who we will call Johnny, and she finally seemed genuinely happy. Then in July, she rang me up asking if she could borrow some money. Johnny was struggling to find work, and they wouldn't get paid again until their next government paycheck. I've always had a kind heart, and I was willing to help out, especially if it was something for Leo or to help them get food, so I agreed, thinking that it would just be a one-time thing. But after that first transaction, she kept asking me for more money week after week. It was never large amounts, usually between $30 to $60, but it got to the point where I was struggling financially too. A few times I started ignoring her calls and text messages, pretending that I was having phone issues. I mean, it just didn't feel like she wanted to talk anymore. Well, we did chat, but after a few minutes, it always turned into her saying, "Hey, can I borrow $50? This went on for another 5 months. Then on a Friday in December of 2022, she called me while I was at work, crying her eyes out. I told her to breathe and I asked her what had happened. Afterwards, she calmed down and she told me that Johnny had punched her across the face on Wednesday and the courts had issued a restraining order. He was banned from coming near her or Leo for 6 months. I asked her why he did it and she told me that he just snapped suddenly. They've been under a lot of pressure with money and bills. Well, when she told me that, I immediately said I will help her out. And that's exactly what I did. For the next 6 months, I sent her money to support her. But in June of 2023, she rang me up and told me that she needed money again. I was willing to give it to her, but then I heard a familiar voice on the line. I heard Johnny say, "Ask him if he can do $80. We need cigarettes." When I heard his voice, I asked her, "What's going on? Why is he there?" Then I heard her say, "Oh, he's allowed to be near us again. I'm so happy he's back." And when I heard that, I just absolutely lost it. So let me get this straight. This piece of dirt hits you and you get back with him? She tried to justify his actions by saying, "Oh, he's stressed out. He didn't mean to." But I went off on her again. "Jasmine, I'm not going to help you anymore if you're going to stay with him. Once an awful person, always an awful person." There was silence on her end for a few seconds before she went off at me. "You're a jerk. We need money to help pay for bills and food. Think about your nephew." I then got really pissed off when she brought up Leo because she had always called me his unofficial uncle. I said to her, "Don't you dare start guilt-tripping me with Leo. And also tell your awful boyfriend to get a job and support his family." After she heard that, she went off on me again. "You're just jealous of us. That's what it is." At this point, I was getting tired, so I decided to end it. And I can see why some people might call me a jerk, but I had had enough. You're not my type anyways. Besides, why would I date my sister sister who can't even put food on the table. I said that and then I hung up the phone. After that, I blocked her everywhere. She tried to reach out for other accounts, but I put my socials on private. I'm now wondering if I did the right thing because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Dude, there is no way on earth I would ever allow someone like that back in my life. You mean to tell me she's going back to the guy that smacked her in the face? Like, are you kidding me right now? She's an idiot for doing that. There's no good excuse for that. I understand people can look back in retrospect and be like, yeah, I was in a really dark place and I shouldn't have done that. But this is common sense. Like, come on. You cannot honestly be telling me that she's just going back to this guy willingly. It's like, dude, have a backbone. What are you doing? So no, I don't blame you for not helping out your friend with money, because I guarantee you Johnny's gonna blow all of it, and this cycle will continue probably indefinitely. Am I the jerk for not paying my roommate a portion of the electricity bill, all because I'd already moved out by the time she started keeping count? Because right now I'm pretty pissed off because she is adamant that I need to pay her back for the 5 days that apparently I was using the electricity, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently moved out of my apartment that I share with a woman who we will call Patty. The light bill had been under my name for the entire time that we have been living together, and since I was moving out and she was staying, we needed to transfer accounts over to her, and we did exactly that on April 25th. So I got the final bill for the last 2 months of the lights that we needed to split. That final bill was substantially higher than anything we paid before. The reason being is that for the month of March, she had used the heater a lot, and also had her boyfriend stay with her a week or two. Meanwhile, I was gone the entire month of March, but we still split that bill. Patty then sent me a text message today, which was a week after I moved out on April 30th, asking about the light bill for April. I said that in the final bill, we already paid for most of April, and her next bill will only include April 26th through April 30th. Mind you, her boyfriend came again to visit the last week of April and stayed in the apartment the entire time. And on top of that, they were also using the heater all day. Anyways, she then proceeds to tell me that she will send me how much I owe her for those 5 days from her next bill. And I'm finding this completely ridiculous. I refuse to pay for 5 days of whatever her bill will be because she cannot tell me how much all of those days were exactly. After I left, she hosted several other people, and her next roommate moved in like a week after me. So whatever light they all spent will obviously add up there. Mind you, I have gifted her a ton of stuff when I moved out, and I've also helped her with free resources for school. I was driving her around when she didn't have a car, etc. And even when she had to go away for 2 months, I told her to not even worry about the light bill because I would take care of all of it. And now she's gonna charge me 5 days that she'll divide based on her next bill. Plus, I would be paying half for her boyfriend as well. So seriously, am I the jerk for saying that I won't pay those 5 days? Because right now I'm still pretty pissed off about this. Oh man, there's no way on earth I would ever pay that. She's being so petty and clearly forgetting all the good things that you did for her. Like seriously, you literally went out of your way to take care of her and make sure that she had her stuff together, but she clearly can't find it in herself to return the favor. Like, are you kidding me right now? So no, I would never pay that for a second, because your roommate, in my opinion, is being incredibly nasty to you. I left my boyfriend right before he proposed, and now he's becoming the man I begged him to be. And at this point, I don't know if I broke things off way too soon, or if I need to do something differently, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I recently ended a 2-year relationship with my ex right before he was going to propose. I know I made the right choice, but part of me is still struggling with the aftermath. In the beginning, he told me he wanted a relationship, then suddenly changed his mind and said he just wanted to be friends. He blocked and unblocked me multiple times, watched my stories, and when I finally began to move on, he came back into my life. I gave him a second chance because I thought people deserve one, but now I regret it. 3 months in, on my birthday, he told me about a girl he used to have feelings for, and how doing something with me reminded him of her. It was hurtful and confusing, and things only went downhill from there. I kept letting things slide even when I felt disrespected, and I just don't know why. He would say things during intimacy that made me uncomfortable, even though I told him I didn't like being called certain names. Our physical relationship felt very one-sided, and I often felt neglected. Over time, he stopped being affectionate, he stopped posting about me, and acted distant when we went places together. I felt like I was constantly asking to be seen and loved. Ever since the breakup, he's done everything I used to ask for, helping me build my credit, being there for me after a car accident, even supporting me through hard moments. He even says that he found God and wants to be a better man. He is showing up now in ways that he never did before. The confusing part is that I do want marriage, and we were apparently so close to that. I had no idea he was planning to propose, and now I'm stuck wondering, wondering, was I too quick to walk away? Or is he only changing because he lost me? What should I do? Oh man, this guy's only changing because you're walking away. He's literally just like throwing down the hook and trying to reel you back in. This all feels really manipulative in my opinion. And I know if I was in this situation and I had a girl acting like that towards me, where she's only making changes when I'm ready to move on and I'm actively like breaking up with her, like if I dealt with that, I think I would just walk away and be like, no, I can't deal with you right now. So yeah, this is really sketchy and I just think you could do way better than this guy. Am I the jerk for refusing to play a game with my friend after he drops $100 on in-game purchases and levels way past me in the online game we were playing? Because right now he's calling me a baby and at this point I'm still pretty pissed off. Here's what's going on. Okay, so me and my friend, both male, a little over 21 years old, decided to start playing this online game that we randomly found. We played well over 4 hours of the game and my friend really enjoyed it, so he decided to purchase $100 worth of cosmetics and story expansions. Now I personally enjoyed it, but not to that extent. I mean, all I dropped was about $20 and that was it. We played until we ultimately reached level 40 and my friend decided to hop off to sleep. Before calling it a night, he messages me and says, "Try not to level too far. We're gonna level the heck out of this tomorrow." So after reading that, I decided not to do anything that would level me too quickly. I spent the next 3 hours doing low-level dungeons and helping other players because that's the sort of thing I enjoy. Then I called it a night and I went to sleep soon afterwards. I woke up the next morning 8 hours later and I saw him online playing the game and I thought nothing of it, probably sorting out purchases and items or something like that. But when I hopped on, I saw his level and immediately got sick. He literally was level 96, about 55 levels above where I was. I got really upset and started to chew him out over a call. All he would say was, "Well, I felt like you were dealing more damage than me, so I decided to get stronger and leveling up was a byproduct." I referred to the text message last night that he sent me and all he said was, "You didn't need to get stronger, I did." I then stopped talking to him up to this morning, which is a couple of days after the incident. He asked me again if I want to hop on, but I refused. He called me a baby and said I was wasting his $100 that he spent on the game, and I should at least help him get his money's worth. But I told him I'm never touching this game again, and if I did, it wouldn't be with him. I wouldn't be this upset if the game had level scaling, where the monsters scale with each party member's level, but they don't have that. If I hopped on, we'd only be able to play dungeons at my level, and he would decimate everything in his path. I would literally have to ask him to let me get kills so that I can level up, because I know for a fact that he would do that and then get bored and be like, "Oh, this is taking too long," and then kill everything that he wants. So am I the jerk for not wanting to play this game anymore, all because he basically ruined it? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting to play with this friend, because they sound like the kind of person who literally always has to be ahead no matter what. And I've dealt with people like that and they are so obnoxious, it's not even funny. So no, I don't blame you for not wanting to play this game. This guy intentionally told you, "Hey, don't level up," and then suddenly he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm gonna level up." And so I think that's really crooked, and I just don't think you need that kind of energy in your life. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.